Oh, it's working. Okay. Hey, everybody. It's Prince of Queens. And I just changed the title of this to Gaytriarchy without Boston Straight Pride organizers because apparently they ghosted Spacepan here and we never heard back from them. So yeah, it's unfortunate because I thought it would be an interesting opportunity for them. I actually imagine they're getting a fair amount of attention, but what I think would be unique about speaking to us would be that we are very open to the idea that this could potentially be a good thing, but at the same time, I would need some convincing. Now, I would have been perfectly fine to be convinced, and I think I could have a good conversation. But I think that that would be, a slightly better, more interesting interview than somebody who's like, yeah, this is awesome. Gay guys are totally mean and heterophobic, and so blah. I hate the gay community because I'm a gay guy and I hate the gay community, and I feel like that's kind of likely who these guys would be talking to, and with us it would be a lot different, in particular with me. So, oh yay, Chadwick's gonna come. Um, okay, he said in a couple minutes. So Chadwick Moore is gonna be our special guest because he's my backup guest, so we'll be able to have an interesting enough show because Chadwick is always fun and everything. Um, so I'm gonna send him the invite. So yeah, I'm sorry guys, but you're less disappointed than I am, I guess is the thing to say. I'm quite disappointed because I thought that this was gonna be such a cool stream, and you know, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe he like watched the video that I made where I was all like, I don't know if I necessarily think it's a good idea, blah blah blah, and he was like, oh, screw this guy. But maybe it's more like he didn't even watch it. I
I don't know. I think maybe they're just a little busy. I know he said earlier that he was on like AM 10:30 and like that was like really stressful or something.
uh
Like
huh.
he was nervous before it, and I thought, our show would be a lot more fun because that'd probably be a lot less, pressure, like scrutiny or whatever. But I think he kind of just forgot. He's probably got a lot of messages or whatever. Because I am just someone who like friended him on Facebook because I had like a mutual friend who mentioned like, oh yeah, I know the guy who organized it, and I was like, oh, I should see if they'll accept my friend request, and then I can send them a message and see if they're interested. And he was like, yeah, I will be interested, but so maybe they'll message later, be like, oh, whoops, I forgot, and then we can have them on another time. Who knows?
Sure,
All we
sure.
can do is speculate.
Yeah. And we'll be able to talk to Chadwick about Milo's presence there. Because of course they're buddies. They're like besties or whatever. So yeah, that'll be cool.
Well,
Maybe
and then the funny thing was the big announcement, Read the Straight Pride Parade, was that they're having Milo as their big guest speaker, which to me, that's an even bigger story. That's like, that makes it way more interesting.
mm-hmm.
But to me, it's like, oh, cool, it's this event that Milo's gonna like start his redemption arc on.
I yeah, I don't know how that'll work out
I mean, like, because
for
Milo
him.
has been angling for a redemption arc, which personally, I don't think he'd ever needed one. I think like the fact that he's supposed to need one, like that pisses me off. Like, but of course that's the state of things. And he like did some touring with Sargon that didn't seem to go as intended, but um,
Mm-hmm.
not for Milo. Milo came out of it like looking awesome. Like,
um, mm.
so I think that's so it kind of makes sense as the next move. I think I saw a joke article about Mike Pence marching in the parade, but I'm wondering if that's true because like you never know these days.
Yeah, I don't I have no idea about that. Like I just legitimately have no idea. Oh, by the way, woman with Arabic looking name who messages me on Facebook sometimes, I sent you an email and I would like you to read it at some point, but it's not as timely as I was thinking before. The information within it, but I'm not going to talk about what that was. So, yeah. So things to talk about while Chadwick is getting here. I will say about the straight pride parade. As it stands now, I guess my biggest criticism of it that I would, kind of like need to be convinced by, is that I worry that it's less about really making a potent statement and maybe a little bit more about, kind of just a little bit of a cheap attention grab mechanism. But I mean, like, I'm eager to be proved wrong about that. Like, I don't think that. I like to believe that's not really true, but I think everybody's viewing it that way. And so I just really want to know how it's not that, like, isn't that a fair thing to ask? That just seems kind of like sort of common sense. And I don't agree with people who aren't going to ask slightly tough questions. Like, it's like, entirely echo chamber interviews on controversial topics aren't super productive to me. And so that's kind of like why I wanted to do it.
Well, the funny thing is, this guy who was potentially going to show up on the show, he's a gay guy, right? And that's like our organizer for the straight pride parade. So that kind of raises questions too, right? Like there'd be some level of skepticism for like a bunch of gay events organized by straight people, right? People like to view that, oh, these things should be, if they're really genuine, right, to be taken at face value. Which for this, I don't think that's the case. I think that it's very much so like a reaction, and to make a larger point about how dumb like pride parades are just in general, or I suppose maybe antiquated. They're really anachronistic. That's just the way that I've kind of always seen them.
Mm-hmm.
But the really interesting thing too is that like with this, it's obviously the kind of event that's going to draw more protesters than like actual people showing up. You're gonna have a bunch of people online who are like, haha, this is cool, give it a like, and then like they're not gonna actually show up, right? They're just gonna be like, that's an interesting concept.
Mm-hmm.
You might get some like real like true believers who are like, actually, yeah, straight people are oppressed and we need this and this is gonna be awesome. Which those are my favorite people, like easily. just imagining the kinds of like over the top like crazy things that they'll show, like just like I'm trying to imagine like what would it be, just like.
Yeah, I imagine it would be somebody who like got fired stupidly for some, anti-gay joke at work or something like that.
Actually, that's a good point. Like that I think is something that should have some voice given to it. And
Oh,
it really ties into this recent
keep talking. Great.
apocalypse BS.
Keep talking. I just have to go grab some water, but I'll be able to hear you.
Yeah, do an Aether note in the chat that he can't pay you. And this also is relevant to what we're talking about with this like weird Vox apocalypse thing, because you have this like annoying. And what am I allowed to talk? I'm not allowed to say anything about him. I'm not allowed to say that he's annoying or that he is. Well, we all know who we're talking about. If I name him, is that a problem? Like, he's like untouchable, right? Because he just like whined to YouTube and whined to Susan, and then they kowtowed to him, and then he's kind of playing both sides of like, oh, I have no power, and all this bull crap, right? But yeah, this straight pride parade actually kind of would be, I guess, an opportunity for people to really unironically stand up and say like, this has gone far enough. But that's part of it too, is that like you're gonna have all kinds of people. You're gonna have people just there to kind of make fun of the concept of having these like identitarian sort of parades, but then also people who are legitimately like, there's an assault on traditionalism, and this needs to stop, and it's not okay. And then you're gonna have like this really weird collection of people who are in the protests, right? Like you're gonna have all of these straight protesters of the straight pride parade who would be using the fact that they're straight as part of their message condemning it, which would sort of affirm this idea that straightness is like an important marker, right? Because like the gay people, like taking the angle of them being against a straight pride parade, I feel like that's a lot less compelling than a straight person being against it, in the same way that like gays condemning a gay pride parade is more compelling than straight people condemning a gay pride parade, if that makes sense. It's just a reversal of everything. So Lindsay asked in chat, is Milo here? No, Milo isn't here. It's one of the organizers who is maybe going to be here, but it looks like they might be busy, or they forgot or something. I don't know. It happens. But Milo is going to be the keynote, I guess, at this straight pride parade, which is amazing. That'll be excellent for sure. So in my view, that makes it just Milo's parade. But Chadwick should be showing up within a couple.
Yeah, Chadwick. He said 5 minutes. So one of the things I was thinking about, which is just kind of funny, is that you know how I always complain about how the left has kind of like thrown out gay people and is kind of like, you know, oh, you're not actually oppressed, and actually you're oppressive because so many of you are white, and you're all racist because
we're last Christmas's toy.
Yeah.
Off to the island of misfit toys.
It's more like, yeah, last Christmas's toy that you were embarrassed to ever play with, or something. And
oh, you know what's funny is they joke like, oh, it's the wrong color, right?
Yeah. And but then now that there's this thing that's like actually not an attack on gay guys, then all of a sudden gay guys are oppressed again, and there's like memes going around of like showing a whole bunch of pictures of guys with like beat up faces, and it's all like,
oh, well, now it's the lesbians, right? We have a lesbian hate crime that seems to be actually like
hey, I didn't even finish what the meme was. It says, okay, be lucky that you don't need a pride parade, you know. And oh god, I left my water over there. But yeah, talk about the lesbians for a second. I'll be back.
Yeah, you guys might have heard of this story. There's the picture going around of the two lesbians on the bus. They have like the bloodied up face, and it looks like they got beat up pretty bad. So this happened in the UK. So then there's two questions that people immediately have in our post Jussie Smollett world. One of which, you might remember Milo had his whole presentation about how like lesbians always fake hate crimes, which I feel like he kind of just had like a few anecdotes there and didn't really offer much to build a case that's like convincing me that like it's really that big of a thing that lesbians always fake hate crimes. But that kind of became the stereotype.
Well, anyway, it's been true in my experience. Like, I've known lesbians claiming that there was some hate crime, and it's either exaggerated or I don't believe it.
Yeah, Terrence says that's ketchup. No, she looks like she got her nose messed up pretty bad.
I don't know. I don't know. No, I don't see. No, for the amount of blood, there's a lot of blood. I don't see any sort of like puffiness or like early signs of bruising. It seems like it's just all blood.
No, because it's in the face, and like if your face bleeds at all, like faces bleed so much, like it's so ridiculous. Like,
yeah, but if you beat up someone enough to cut them, there's going to be significant bruising and puffiness and stuff like that. She doesn't look like somebody. Neither of them look like somebody who is actually like hit a bunch in the face. It looks just like a whole bunch of blood. Now, I'm definitely not saying that it's not true. I mean,
Yeah, we don't know. We
yeah,
really don't.
I don't know, but I am suspicious.
The other, and then the second angle of it, assuming it is real, is of course we have what is called the Coulter rule in effect. Do you know the Coulter rule?
No.
The Coulter rule is Ann Coulter's rule, which is that if they don't say that the perpetrators are white, it means that they are Asian, Southeast Asian. It was a bunch of Chinese guys who beat them up, I'm sure.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can make of that what you will. That's that whole thing. It's almost like, what do you even say? It's another.
Yeah, but I mean, that's definitely a fair point. Like, it's like who would actually be beating up lesbians in London or whatever? Was it
Well,
London?
the other thing too is there's no CCTV footage. Usually you have some kind of footage on like a bus, which I guess isn't always going to be the case, but that's one thing that you'd think they have on lock by now. Especially because I guess it was like a double decker. They're on the second floor of it, and then they ran down to tell the bus driver, and the people who were attacking were able to escape. But like, to just adding that much time to it, I feel like you'd think there would be some kind of camera.
Huh. Yeah, I don't really know.
Hello.
Oh, hey.
Hi. Hey guys, I'm so honored to be your last minute backup plan tonight.
you're the trusted workhorse in case of emergency guy.
Well, it's also just fun. Actually, this is it's enjoyable for me to sit and talk to you guys. So I do it out of love for the conversation.
Well, cool. I'm very honored that you say that. And by the way, now that Chadwick is here, it's a good time to remind people that you should hit the like button, because you should do that, because algorithms and stuff. And you can send me money on Streamlabs. My window is open. The link is in the chat. It's like streamlabs.com/Prince of Queens live stream is, I believe, how you will find it, and then I can get it and talk about what you are saying. So because my entire channel was demonetized. I was one of the people, which really proves to me, at least, that I was on some little list of channels that they find problematic, because I haven't really been making that many videos recently. And everybody knows, like, okay, and I was given it for hate speech, and that's so silly for me.
Wait, so did they cite a specific video or incident?
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
This is so insane to me, and I love the irony of YouTube with their stupid little changing their logo to this stupid little rainbow flag, the virtue signal, and here they are banning you, which I think is the greatest voice on YouTube for a kind of rational history-based when it comes to your gay content. Like rational history-based, research-based lesson on gay rights and gay history, that it wasn't always this far left socialism thing that's very new and very trendy. And YouTube finds that problematic. It's so bizarre.
Yeah. Well, I think that, okay, so I've been thinking, like, what are the possibilities? And I have written a script of this video. I should be recording it today. But I need to do a little bit of revising and adding some stuff, and I was thinking, like, well, what are the things that okay, so I think that like what is similar as the case of Steven Crowder, I think that they're actually demonetizing him because of his political views, and they're just claiming that it was because of the that there's like the excuse, which is calling what I was about to say Gabe Gonzalez. No, that's the other one.
Oh yeah, he hit me up on Grindr not too long ago, by the way.
Oh my god, are you serious?
He continually hits me up on Grindr.
He has to know who you are.
I would imagine that he does. I don't respond, but
no. Can you say can you tell him that you're a friend of Prince of Queens? because this is a really funny thing. I made a response video to him, like a very early video, like probably well over 2 years ago, because he had this like terrible like misogyny in the gay community, and he's all like, misogyny is a real problem. And like, and it's actually almost offensive, just like in the way that if they wanted to, they could say that he was using hate speech in certain things, and it's also just so dumb, like the points that he's, like, and he includes crap about, gay men touching women's bodies, and he was like, at first he talks about how he's like, most gay guys don't want women at the bar, and then he's like, and let's say you love seeing women at the bar, that doesn't mean that you're that you have every right to grab them, and because you the idea that that you're entitled to touch a woman's body is misogyny and blah 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 blah, and it's like, nobody does that, it's
no one does that, and all the grabbing going on at gay bars is men on men, which
and straight women on gay guys,
and straight women on gay guys, and it's like in any other circumstance it would be like the biggest hotbeds of sexual assault, but gay guys are like, I don't care,
Yeah, like, the only times I've actually cared, like when there's like inappropriate touching, is when it like actually involves my ass. There was this one time, that I talk about when I was in San Francisco, and I swear to God this happened. Like, this sounds like it's almost too unbelievable, because it wasn't even late. It was like the sun was still up. I was wearing a pair of pants that had a tear in the back, and I admit that that's really quite trashy, but they still looked cute, like you can have like a little bit of a tear in the right part in the back of your pants, and if you're like, I was very, you knew me in person, how I dress, so I was very like dirty hipster type guy, and so it still looked good enough. And this totally drunk woman must have come out of a happy hour, and she was with, probably 3 or 4 gay friends. And I'm walking down the street going to a bar by myself, and she comes up behind and she sticks her finger through the crack and like or the hole, and like touches me. And I'm like, whoa, I don't even know you. And she was like, well, you have it. She basically was like, you were asking for it, And so that bothered me. And then the other one that bothers me is, so I had, it's less so now, but it used to be a lot more, pretty lopsided butt, due to complicated circumstances, mainly because like I had a very messed up back, and it makes it so that like the musculature on one side of my body is far more developed, and so that makes it so my pants kind of slide down, because like one of my butt cheeks is like not as muscular as the other one.
You have a lopsided butt cheek?
Yeah, it's not so much anymore because I've really worked on my back a lot, but it was actually pretty bad for a while. And so a lot of the time when I'll lean over, my pants just like fall down, and you can see butt crack like every time. And so people, I don't know why people think that this is okay to do when you're like tying your shoes, but so many people have full on just like stuck their finger down the top of my butt crack. Like I've almost socked, grannies that start with a T over doing that. And then I'm like, oh, I can't punch this person. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like, why do you think that? Because like, when you're like tying your shoe, and there's literally somebody like sticking their finger down your butt crack that you don't even know from behind, and it's just like, that is the most violating feeling, because you're vulnerable position,
Well, I guess we differ, because I never mind it. I mean, it can be like creepy and weird. I would never do it to someone else, but at the same time, I kind of like, when in those environments, I just sort of embrace the carnival of
I am normally,
and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you want to touch me, fine. But
no, I am normally okay. I am normally okay with people grabbing my ass and things like that, like to a certain degree. Like if I'm standing up and comfortable and everything. But when you're like tying your shoes and you can't even like see, you know, you're like leaning over and everything, it's like you feel so defenseless, and it is weird. But those are really the only times this ever actually bothered me, and I wouldn't even say it's sexual assault, you know, but it felt violating, you know, it did.
Well, so if I may just switch topics real quickly, did you guys watch? I just tweeted about this. Did you watch Mayor Pete giving his giving a speech to like the Matthew Shepard Foundation or something in Iowa, and telling his coming, oh I know, and telling his coming out story, which was so revealing about who Mayor Pete is, because he graduated high school a year before I did in Indiana. I went to high school an hour away from Indiana. I came out when I was 15. He came out when he was 33. I'm just sort of like rattling off our comparisons. I have a hardcore Republican dad. Pete's dad is a communist professor. The town he grew up in is a liberal college town. And
he's a communist professor?
Oh yeah. His dad's a Marxist professor.
Oh God.
Yeah. He's So I mean,
that's why he's given a pass for being a.
Well, yeah, he's white Obama. I would say gay Obama, but that's not really settled yet. So he's white Obama, and so he but in the speech he's giving, he's talking about like all the fear and it's this completely delusional, paranoid diatribe about how afraid he was to come out. And I'm like, what? To me, he's looking for pandering points and sympathy points, and I'm like, to me, it says this is a man who is completely out of touch with reality, completely out of touch with his fellow man. And then he describes how, like, and then he came out and then he won re-election by 80%, which, asterisks, 8,000 people voted for him, 2,000 people voted against him. So it's not really like in a liberal town.
It's like an AOC style win, right? Where it's
exactly. AOC is much worse. But and then he says that, then he won re-election by 80%. And he just couldn't believe it. And he was so surprised at how the people of South Bend, elected him. I'm like, do you not know the people of South Bend? Do you not, like, you were surprised that they don't care that you're gay?
Mm.
Well, and doesn't that kind of self-defeat, right? Where he's like, I came out and then I ran for mayor and everybody accepted me. It's like, yeah. Like,
oh, and even has some lie about how
Matthew Shepard, like, why are they still pretending that that's a gay issue?
I know, because it's such a perfect example of just a complete and utter media lie that has been totally debunked. And but it's the golden cow of the gay rights movement. I mean, Matthew Shepard was what the gay lobby used to push everything for several years afterwards.
I was actually thinking what would be a cool documentary to make would be to go to Laramie and talk to normal people about how the incident has affected the town, because apparently they're very, very sensitive about it. And it'll be cool to like actually get that side of the story.
Well, you should, and talk to me if you do. I was tweeting about, on top of that, I just was tweeting about how, I have to do this every so often to remind people about how it was fake. And I was tweeting about the facts, and one of my followers responded that she worked with Aaron McKinney, one of the killer's sister, and she was like, this is during the time of the trial. She's like, yeah, everything you're saying is 100% correct. So I would happily connect you with her if you do that.
Yeah, I mean, someday, I mean, I can't exactly afford doing that at the moment. So, yeah.
How are you, Derek? How's things?
So I was eating a salad. This is good. I've been good. It's really hot here and really humid, which is annoying. I was in a habit of playing Dance Dance Revolution like every day for a week, and I was like, yeah, I'm like being active and everything. I finished max 300 on heavy, which I haven't been able to do since I was like 14. Like, this is awesome. And then I kind of just fell off the wagon, and now I'm just kind of like being a lazy piece of crap again. But that means I make more YouTube videos. So,
Well, as long as you're doing something, we're proud of you.
Yeah, I never quite have this moderation. I feel like I always just am obsessed with one thing. And I just switch the one thing. And I'm getting ready to have my trip over to America to go to ICMI, Which we have Visions of Color in the chat mentioned that he's going to be
That's
there and
the men's rights conference in
Hey,
Chicago, right?
Visions of Color, would you like to come on? You can
we're all silent like as though we're gonna like hear the live chat.
yeah, well, send me a message or just type yes into it or the chat or something like that, and let me know.
I'm sorry, I'm sure I could look this up, but when is that men's conference in Chicago? Because I need to be there sometime this summer, so I should coordinate.
Early August.
It's
August.
16, 17, 18.
Oh, mid-August. Cool. That's
actually great. I should coordinate to come because I got to be there anyway for something.
Oh my god! Now I have to definitely go.
You do. I got to be there and my travel dates are flexible, but I have to go there at some point very soon, so I should just coordinate around this.
Huh. Well, I am getting my background check to be a professional dog walker. It said it would be a few weeks, and I can probably start raising money that way. Maybe throw a small fundraiser.
You know what you should do is you should get like an audio set, and then you can record your thoughts while you're walking the dogs, and like multitask that way. Or get a GoPro, and then you can have footage of cute puppers walking around. Everybody loves doggos.
Prince, do you love dogs? Are you a dog guy?
I've never actually personally owned a dog. I've lived with dogs before, and I love like all pets. I have had many, many cats, and I'm very good with dogs. Dogs always really like me. I'm good at relating to animals, but I haven't actually. I can't say I'm a dog guy.
Well, like
don't let Weg know.
Like excuse me. Yeah, well, like children, dogs are good readers of the soul. They know good souls when they sniff them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was funny because there was a time in my life when dogs were often weird around me, and I used to tell people like dogs don't like me because they know I'm the devil. And then I stopped being. I had that acid trip when I was about 17, and then I eventually became pathologically honest as a result of it, and then they started liking me.
I actually have a funny semi-dog related story. I was walking by this like weird construction-y area. There was a lot of rain, and they were like fixing something with like the drains or whatever. And like there was this sound of a dog barking, like ruff, ruff. And like I was like, oh my god, is there a doggo trapped in a hole or something? And there was like a number on there to call the construction people, but they only spoke Chinese, and like they only spoke Cantonese. If they had spoken Mandarin, like there might have been a chance of me kind of explaining it, but I couldn't explain it at all. And like it just sounded like there was a dog in there. And this is Hong Kong. So of course if there's a dog trapped there, it's a little Hong Kong doggo. It's like a little purse dog that like went too far away from its pram, right? And like it's probably crying because it hasn't been brushed in a while. Like they're like little babies. Like they're not real dogs. They have no chance, right? So I was like, oh no, it's probably a little Hong Kong doggo stuck. And like I couldn't get a hold of anyone on the phone, but like it's a semi-busy like walkway. So a lady walked by and she knew a little bit of Mandarin. And then she was explaining to me that no, it's a recording and you're retarded. And then I listened to it again and I was like, oh, it's like the same bark in like regular intervals. So they just like play a recording of a dog bark to like warn blind people so that blind people don't fall in. But I still think that's very strange.
That is pretty bizarre. I'm not exactly understanding it, I gotta say.
Yeah, I'm just like, am I retarded? Or I mean, sorry, am I? Well, I guess you're demonetized anyway. Am I exceptional? Or it's kind of obvious in hindsight that it wasn't a real dog, but you never know. And like you'd rather call and kind of make yourself look silly than have a poor little Hong Kong doggo stuck in a hole. Anyway, I was just reminded of that.
It is really bizarre. Like, can you imagine a blind person trying to rescue it?
Well, and then also, like, yeah, as the blind person, like, what if they're confused too? You know what I mean? I guess their hearing's probably like better, that they wouldn't be deceived. But like, why not a beep? Or like, or how about this? Like an automated message of a human that explains what it is.
Yeah.
Like, it was gonna be a recording.
It's very strange.
So I'll plug myself really quick. I don't know if you guys saw. I'll send it to you. Excuse me. I have a cough today. I'll send you a link. But so my column in the Spectator this week, I was so fascinated by this because I'm reading C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, which is it's sort of his guy. It was written in 1943, and it's sort of his like overall guide about Christianity to explain it to sort of intellectuals and people who would normally be turned off on it and think it's just, you know.
Yeah, like it's like his apologetics, like defense.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book, and it really makes a good argument and lays out a big case. But there's this fascinating his section on sexual morality is so good, and I wrote a column about it for the Spectator this week, which you can find on their site, Spectator USA. And so he's talking about sexual morality in 1943, and he's saying that chastity is the Christian virtue that turns people off from the faith the most, because they see it's the natural human desire that it's is grossly disproportionate to its purpose, which is reproduction. And people think that, you know, God's rules around sexuality and sex are completely unreasonable, meaning that if a man had sex every time he wanted to and produced a child, then that, you know, we'd have the world would have ended long ago. And but he uses the case, like, to drive his point home. He uses the case of man's other natural instinct, which is eating. And it's so interesting because in 1943 he's saying, you know, sure, we may overeat and we may eat enough for 2 people, but we never eat enough for 10 people. This is one of our natural biological instincts that actually is in check. And then he uses the comparison of a strip club, and he's like, you know, you can get a room full of people together to sit and watch a woman undress on stage. Imagine if you got a room full of people together to sit and look at a mutton chop on stage. And he's like, how bizarre would that society be? And how yeah, do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And he's like, how bizarre would that society be? And how would, like, what would you think their relationship, what would you think had gone wrong in that society, particularly if they weren't a society suffering from famine and everyone was getting enough to eat? And then, so I'm reading that and I'm like, wow, everything, it makes his argument more poignant that has completely changed, you know. And I wrote that, you know, the Food Network launched in 1993. Everything now, like the whole foodieism culture, food porn culture, these hundreds of thousands of Instagram accounts only devoted to food porn, and
mukbang too, like not just food porn, but people eating gratuitous amounts of food
and that was
like
the other thing I said too.
licking their fingers. And
that's the other thing I said too, is that, like, wow, like the person who, he said that no one eats, someone might eat enough for 2, but no one eats enough for 10. It's like, have you seen a gender studies class? Have you seen social justice warriors? So now, like, those enormous, you know, like ham planets are everywhere in our culture, and they're even celebrated. They're turned into celebrities, and they're told that we can't criticize them.
Wait, what's that, ham planet?
Yeah, ham planet. That's a Miloism that I stole.
Explain it to me.
It's, you know, a planet name of ham, a very, very fat person.
Oh.
So
you're overthinking it.
Yeah, you're overthinking it.
My favorite is death fats.
What's that?
Instead of morbidly obese, death fat.
Oh, death fat.
Just death fats.
Yeah, but it's so it's incredible, and I think that the point that I kind of make is that so, you know, in the book, C.S. Lewis talks about how in Christianity, and this is also in Dante's Inferno, and this is something that Christian scholars all agree on, is that the sins of the flesh are worse than the sins of the spirit, and C.S. Lewis calls them the animal self and the diabolical self. So in Dante's Inferno, like, treachery and wrath are far worse than lust and gluttony, but But where we've kind of come to today in our society, and this is not just a Christian thing, this goes back to the ancient Greeks. This is sort of the foundation of Western civilization, is a kind of movement away from being beasts and into rational human beings and rational people. But we've moved to a place sort of starting with the Enlightenment, which sought to explain the entire natural world, and now has gone overboard so that there is only the natural world. And we think that we basically completely disregard. We believe the spirit doesn't exist anymore, and the only thing that matters is the flesh. So everyone believes, pretty much in vogue, just to think of human beings as only animals and nothing else. And so the sins of the spirit, and I'm not using this in a preachy way. I'm just saying that the goals of what we should be as human beings don't even matter anymore, because we only focus on our animal selves, which is why our relationships to sex and eating are so out of whack and indulged.
So by the way, I just wanted to say, speaking of sex and sexual gluttony, I forgot to actually tell the story about Gabe Gonzalez from the videos, because
right, yes,
it's kind of funny. So one of the things he really, really harped on about in that video was like how awful it is that so many guys will put that they don't want femmes on their hookup profiles, and how not dating, feminine men is misogyny and it sucks and blah, 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 that whole crap. So I, countered that in my video, and then one of my subs ended up searching on Scruff and finding his hookup profile.
Oh,
yeah. And so I made a video about that, and it said that he was into queer jocks, daddies, I forget what, maybe one or two other, but I think that queer was the closest one that could have been potentially femme, but all of the other ones were things that were masculine, and he's not a particularly femme gay guy. He, I actually think he's kind of cute, personally. He's way cuter than the other one, Carlos Maza. Yeah.
Coke nose.
Yeah. So, then I made another video about that, and I showed, his Scruff profile, because it's, fair use, actually. And I thought that was kind of funny to find out. And now that I know now that we know that he hits you up, it's also pretty hilarious.
Okay, so actually I was just thinking, I may be thinking there's 3 gay Latino far lefties who do this, and 2 of them are named Gabe, and I may be thinking of the other one, and I won't say his name to embarrass him, because I'm not like that. So it actually might not be Gonzalez. I'll have to check. It might be the other one, but there's one of them that does. Yes.
Huh. Okay. I want to know who the other one is, though, because I don't think I know it.
I'll message you. The other one's actually, I think the other one's actually kind of cute. The other 2 are hideous, if I remember correctly. But I'll let you know. I'll message you.
Gabe Gonzalez is kind of he's, I guess, supposed to be, Latino, but he looks like he's Jewish.
Let me look him up real quick. Gabe Gonzalez.
He looks like kind of nerdy Jewish guy to me, but I kind of think I kind of think that's cute.
Oh, there's a baseball player named Gabe Gonzalez who's fucking hot.
Let me look.
Let me now have to look up Gay Gonzalez gay to find him. No. Yeah, I know that one. He's the worst. That's not the one. Okay, so to be clear, that's not the one who hits me up on Grindr. There's another one who's actually better looking, but still just as triggered, insane, and lefty.
Yeah, I didn't really think he would be your type.
No. I got to think the Latinos, but I do have standards.
I'm just looking over Carlos Maza's
He's
Twitter
not really
feed,
looking
and it makes me
at
hate
the moment.
everything so much. I'm just gonna make a video reading through all of his tweets.
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
Oh,
I think okay, so about Carlos Maza, I do think that, this is not a point that I am the only person that came up with, though I did come up with this independently. This is not his personal crusade. He worked for Media Matters. He works for freaking Vox.
Right.
Ezra Klein is a diabolical evil genius, and Media Matters is diabolical. And, you know, like, they have been wanting to do this. Like, that's why I am on the list. You know,
and
gotta
Media
sign
Matters-
that petition, kids. Sign that petition.
Yeah, and Media Matters is a Podesta operation, and it's
no, I think you're confusing that with.
Oh, Think Progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right.
Yeah, I know the guy who owns it is David Brock, who nobody knows what he looks like, because if you go through the pictures that are supposed to be him, it's like clearly different actors. But so.
But this whole Carlos.
Oh, so yeah, he's ultimately just the gullible fool that like is like willing to be the fall guy because he has that much hate in his heart, and he's probably getting laid off or something anyway. And so he's like, if I can't have a career, no one can. You know, it's like, don't you think that if Ezra Klein didn't know that it's like a career ruining thing to do to actually be the guy to do this, that he would have probably like done it himself?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. He's a patsy, and this guy, he was trained by Media Matters. I love that he is one of these people who like fetishizes this white nationalism Nazi fantasy that doesn't exist. He's totally, if you go through his tweets, he's totally obsessed with Tucker Carlson. Like, you know, he's basically.
Well, it's in his bio.
Oh my God! Yeah. And he basically is begging to be dominated by a Nazi, but sadly they don't exist. And
maybe that's why they keep hitting you up on Grindr.
That's exactly right. Oh,
they want you to. They want you to. They want to.
It's not the same one. It's not the same one though.
They want you to whisper MAGA country.
It's not the same one. Yeah. No. You know what? I got stories. Maybe if I drink a beer or two, I'll be loose enough to tell them about people on Grindr who have like who recognize me and have like race fantasies. And I'm like,
weird.
Yeah. But no, but that car.
Because you're into racial minorities.
Well, I typically, you know, I'm typically not into white guys, but there's exception to everything. But that's just, you know, my aesthetic.
But do you like put it on your profile?
No. My profiles say like, you know, I'm open to all ages and races and types and, you know, whatever.
Mine just says no cucks, feminists, or commies.
Yeah, well, my scruff one does that, and my scruff one I go full on MAGA, and which is good because I get lots of people who are like. I get tons of messages who are like, "Oh my God, like, love your profile. I didn't know there's other people like me," which is why I keep it up. Which is basically why I keep the apps, because it's so entertaining and nice to actually, you know, see other people out there and just know they're around. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Mazza is. Oh my God, he's such a tool, and he's a fake victim. You know, he's a smear merchant and a fake victim. He doesn't feel insulted by Crowder. I mean, Crowder makes jokes about him. It's like,
well, and you know what's really funny about this is that it's happening right as Google is facing the antitrust investigation, and also as of today, or maybe very late yesterday or something, Superior Court judge in California ruled finally that James Damore's lawsuit against Google will proceed to the discovery phase. So they're going to start actually probing Google's internal memos and stuff for proof that they are so James Damore might have made a little bit of a mistake in approaching the lawsuit because he's trying to accuse them of bias against conservatives, and that's not necessarily something that will hold up in court. But hopefully they'll find that there is proof that they are anti-male and anti-white and Asian, because they are. And so that's going to open up a whole other can of worms. And so it's really odd that they're like demonetizing people. I have suspected, and I've thought this basically as soon as this came out. I'm like, you know, maybe it is what this is really about, is that they know that there's going to come a point where they can't get away with the same crap they've been doing anymore. So they're just going to preemptively just demonetize all the people that they suspect that they will have a problem with. And then that'll be that. And hopefully they won't have to like restore our monetizations. Because they might not or something. Does that make sense?
Well, but what would be it does, and I think you pointed this out on Twitter. I think you're the first person I saw to acknowledge that Google's about to get into that. This was coinciding with some investigations into Google. But I wonder. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. But I would wonder what would be if this were strategic on Google's part because of this impending dig and what's going to come out in Discovery. How would that benefit them doubling down on their censoriousness? And then there's
well, I don't know. Maybe it's just that they're not going to be able to like retroactively have to face consequences for, like maybe there's going to be a ruling that's going to say, hey, you can't discriminate against people because of politics. Like that's going to be what the antitrust lawsuit ends up being or something. And then but it's going to be effective only after they make that decision.
Well, with antitrust, I mean, I don't know why. Maybe they are. I'm not sure, but I don't know why Gab isn't suing or isn't behind antitrust cases. I mean, the biggest case for antitrust was Gab being kicked off Google and the Google Play Store and the App Store, the Apple App Store. I mean, is there any more evidence you need for like this massive, disgusting trust that these two companies have?
Yeah, it like absolutely is a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is something we know.
Exactly, and I think the Gab app scenario is the best, most clear example. Although the examples are everywhere, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, I really don't know where they're going with the antitrust thing. Like maybe it's not going to be so cut and dry as squashing out competitors, but maybe it's also going to be squashing out political competitors, because we know that Google is in bed with the Democratic Party and that they highly favor them, and they get Facebook gets actual money from the like politics, like taxpayer money. I don't know about Google, but Google definitely has been able to dodge a lot of taxes and things like that. And so maybe they're going to somehow incorporate that into it, but I just don't know.
Well, and they're in bed with the government, especially Google. And not only that's why the whole like these lazy, capital L libertarians who are like, my private company. It's like, well, yeah, they're not really private companies. They get government contracts. Their whole entire business is built on infrastructure developed by the U.S. government, which is the internet. And but like I've been saying this for a while, and I wrote a column about it a couple months ago in the Washington Times, that the approach, I don't think anything's going to happen with antitrust because they're too powerful. They'll just litigate effectively against it and lobby the hell out of it. Same with Section 230 immunity, which protects them from being sued. If they were to lose Section 230 immunity, it would be the end of them. But and they won't lose it, even though they should. But I think and taking a case to the Supreme Court isn't going to happen anytime soon. And I think the best way to do it is, and this is actually starting to happen, is for conservatives and libertarians and constitutionalists to take the gay marriage approach, which is start with state governments. So when gay marriage first passed in Massachusetts, it was not popular with the Massachusetts voters. It was the state legislature that became activist and went ahead and passed it. And then it went from there. I talked to a lawyer, Ron Coleman, who's representing Gavin McInnes in his case against the SPLC. And I spoke to him about this, and he basically said, once one state passes a sort of bold and controversial law, it's as though all 50 do, because not only will other states, like-minded states, then follow suit, but it will inevitably end up in the Supreme Court once there's a challenge. So all a state needs to do, and there's a state lawmaker in Florida named Joe Grubers, I believe is his name. I'm sorry, Joe, if I mispronounced your last name, but who has introduced this bill that basically says if you ban, every time you ban a user for constitutionally protected speech, or you delete one of their posts that is constitutionally protected, we're going to fine you $75,000 for each one. So if this makes it through, and there's I just saw that someone in Texas, a lawmaker in Texas, is also trying to do the same thing. I think that is the best approach, and it's also the most palatable to both the sort of free market people and the the free speech crowd. So imagine if Florida has a law that says, okay, you deleted my tweet that's constitutionally protected political speech, you get fined $75,000. That's going to throw the company into a tailspin. It's going to force them to respect the First Amendment rights of the people of this country, in the same way that Google and Facebook and Twitter and all these companies respect the extremely oppressive speech laws in other countries, especially Muslim countries. They adhere to blasphemy laws in the government and will delete and censor, if you criticize Muhammad or whatever. So why can't we expect the same, that they respect our absolute speech freedoms here?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to be said for that approach than I don't know. I guess if you have to pick like one approach that all libertarians are, at least like a good chunk of them are endorsing, like the single most popular, even if it doesn't make up the majority by itself, would be like the black pill accelerationist fad,
Right.
or the Yang Banger fad. And I think that actually, what you've described makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And I think it appeals to like people like me who are like the Ron Paul kids, who like there's a lot of people I think who are really disillusioned with politics just on the heels of that. And like we would have been happy to see like Rand Paul being the Republican nominee, and I feel like we didn't disappear, but it's just something that like doesn't really have much of an outlet. The closest outlet that has been like, Trump.
It just occurred to me that, because I always say that I'm really worried about what happens in 2024 after Trump's second term. And I think Rand Paul would be the best person to take up the helm after Trump, because I can't think of any other Republican who could to carry on this. He's obviously very different than Trump, but to still carry on the same spirit of what.
What do you think of Ted Cruz?
I like that. I actually like Ted Cruz. I know people don't. I like the fact that he's like the only politician who seems to understand the internet and what's happening on the internet, aside from Donald Trump. He's the only one who kind of gets it. I like that he took up the helm of looking into Silicon Valley, but nothing's really come of it. I hope if he were to do something if he were to go beyond the president, because President Trump, as much as I adore him, he's not going to tackle this issue. It's important that he tweets about it to draw attention to it, but he's not going to do anything, and it's probably because people around him are whispering in his ear, and there's no political moment for it. Like with gay marriage, there was no political moment for gay marriage until one state made it happen, and then it created a political moment. So as much as we care about this stuff, there's no actual political moment for reigning in Silicon Valley. If Ted Cruz were to go beyond Trump and were to overstep Trump and to become a leader on this issue that so many people care about, he could certainly get that kind of passion and support behind him that Trump had and be elected president. But I don't know if he will. And Cruz, he's a constitutional scholar. He's a really smart guy, Ted Cruz.
Abash says, I'd say Yang understands the internet fairly well. Well, that might be true. And I would also say that he understands that if we created a $1,000 universal basic income, that it would bankrupt like every small business and leave entirely poor class and an entirely corporate class.
Exactly.
And that would be terrible for everybody, but he's doing it anyway.
Yes, well, and also his whole internet cred, it's all astroturf, and like people on the internet see right through it. So he, insofar as he might understand the internet, I guess comparatively well as far as politicians are concerned, he doesn't understand internet culture like at all.
Well, one way that Yang does understand the internet is and this is true, he hired people on 4chan to troll for him. So a lot of these people who think that the Yang thing is organic, it's not.
And it's like, how are you going to make it work when like you clearly have this divide? It's like literally half of his supporters are people who don't think anything he's saying will work and want the system to collapse, and then the other half are a bunch of true believers who basically are a bunch of looters. Like that's kind of. You know,
Well, yeah,
they're a bunch of Luddites and looters. That's all they are.
As you mentioned earlier, Derek, I'm completely sympathetic in many ways with the accelerationists, especially where this issue is concerned. You know, like I kind of love that there's a lot of people. Milo Yiannopoulos started this on his Telegram channel of promoting ban Crowder, hashtag ban Crowder, and they're like, we just need to ban everyone. Like, why not? You know, and I think it's hilarious and wonderful, and I agree with them. I'm like, yeah, ban them all, and let's see what conservatives are made of. Let's see what they do.
Yeah, I was thinking, wait, you finish what you're saying.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Telegram is wonderful if you guys aren't on it, because especially Milo's channel, Gavin McInnes, their channels are so entertaining and so informative and great. So I'd recommend everyone sign up for Telegram. When you're on there, you realize what has been missing for the last few years on social media, because they are free to say anything they want, the most outrageous things. And also, you know, it's very informative, and they're just free, and it's actually it's nice. And I'm like, wow, maybe we're heading back to that. Maybe that will be the future. With that said, I guarantee Apple and Google are soon going to ban Telegram from the App Store.
Okay, so I think about what we were just saying. Oh yeah, the accelerationist approach. I did kind of have the thought, and this was funny that how this came to me. Joe Rogan had David Pacman on his show, which, you know, David Pacman is insufferable. I can't believe I used to actually kind of like
Who
him.
is he? I don't know who he is.
He's this far leftist guy who's kind of he will criticize the SJWs, but then at the same time he's a massive apologist, and then he just says stuff that's so not true, and he's really irritating. So he was on Joe Rogan, and he was trying to say, no, I don't think that YouTube is a far leftist company. I don't think it has far leftist bias. I mean, they're a corporation. But you know, that's the dumbest line ever. Like, the people who try to be like, how can you say that a big corporation is far leftist? I mean, all they're trying to do is make money, and the far left is not about profit. And it's do you actually believe that? Do you actually believe that? You know, it's I wouldn't say that they're going to give people the communist utopia that they want, but I certainly believe that they're definitely pushing that kind of politics to sell people on this kind of corporatist dream of communism, so that they can better control people. You know, it's once all the companies really have to do is put on this veneer of being kind of communist by way of identity politics, and then they can use all of that crazy authoritarianism that people will end up supporting because it's similar enough to this weird utopian vision that people think, some people think that they want. And that's I feel is the actual strategy. I kind of made a video about that to a certain degree, called The Religious Lies of Communist Snake Oil Salesmen. And it's about
that's a really good title.
Yeah, and it's just about how you know, it's this religion thing. A lot of people buy into it, but a lot of the people who sorry, I'm burping a little bit. A lot of the people who are big proponents of it, I don't think that they're actually communists. I think that they're totally capitalists. Personally, they're in it to make a buck, but they're still going to peddle all this stuff. And I think that that's kind of what the corporations do. So yes, it can be a far leftist, communist, embracing, preaching corporation and have that bias. That's why ContraPoints is their teacher's pet, and they, you know, clearly grant ContraPoints favors, and every video is monetized, and you know,
right. Well, it's also that I think the grand thing that people miss is that the Marxism was an economic philosophy that grew out of supporting the poor and the working classes. And Marxism failed, you know, with the Soviet Union and with countless other examples. So what the left did is they abandoned the economic argument. They abandoned the poor,
Yeah.
and the working classes, and they reconfigured the same philosophy to apply to social issues, which is why
Into a particle board.
into a particle board. You're right. Yes, like your video, feminism is communist particle board.
Intersectional.
Intersectional feminism. Yes, and it's a lovely video, and I love when you do long content because I love long content. But that's exactly what happened. So now I believe it was Andrew Breitbart who coined the phrase cultural Marxism. I could be wrong, but I think it was him. But cultural Marxism, it's just Marxism. It's the same philosophy applied to social issues. So instead of it being about class, instead of the oppressors being the capitalist and the business owner, the oppressor is now the straight white man. But it's the exact same thing, and the end goal is the same. Maybe the reason how it's changed is that they're more concerned today with globalism and open borders than perhaps original Marxism was. I'm not sure. Maybe Marx was actually concerned with that. I'm not certain. But that's what. And so corporations are perfectly fine in there. It's all about control, and it's all about this.
Yeah, I think that what it is it's just a power grab. Like, I think that it's like a bunch of people who think similarly and are willing to do favors for each other, coming up with a way of attacking the most wealthy and powerful people because they want them to get out of the way so that they can take over.
And what fundamentally is at the core of it, I think you're right. And what's at the core of it is this hatred and disgust for human nature and mankind, and believing that they must be controlled and manipulated and steered into certain ways of being or ways of thinking or ways of behaving. Whereas conservatives and the opposite, despite being slandered as hateful and awful, actually love humanity and mankind and have faith in humanity and mankind, which is why they believe in empowering the individual and taking and not being controlled. It's that's the basis of the left, and sort of the basis of the one of the bases of the conflict of visions that's been around for hundreds of years.
Okay, so that we got a little bit sidetracked, but I was saying about David Pakman making his little point. He's first trying to say that he doesn't think that YouTube has a bias. And then I don't remember what he said exactly. Like, I don't remember how this came up. And I don't even think he really finished the thought. I kind of finished it for him because it sounded like he was going to say something like this. And then I was like, wait, he kind of does make a little bit of a good point in that maybe one of the reasons that it's always the right-wing and centrist content that gets demonetized or banned is because only the left really tattles all the time. Like, free speech advocates just are so big on not tattling that they don't, report cat black videos, even though they're racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic as hell. And so I was just thinking, I'm like, okay, well, I've decided, like, I long ago decided to take a accelerationist approach on Facebook because Facebook was so incredibly biased in terms of how they'll give you little, 1 month bans for essentially no reason, just because there's stupid little tattletales. Like, I was given a ban for calling a feminist a bully. Like, that was like basically, it was like one line comment, and I literally that was the closest thing to an insult in it. Now, granted, she was a professional feminist. It was very, very clear. And I said, stop, bully. I realize this is your career, but nobody's buying what you're selling here. And I think she must have been connected or something. Like, this was during the 2016 election. And so somehow she was able to get that banned. And I was like, this is too much. And so I just started, like, anytime somebody proved themselves to be just completely toxic, hypocritical, and rude, and also, freedom of speech hating, dishonest, I would start reporting their comments if I could, and it could be for just a number of things, like if they talked about if it was a threat, or even if they use the word retarded as a negative, or sometimes they'll say quote unquote retard, I would report that for, you know, and it would start working, you know. And I think that that's a good plan. When the platform is already just so authoritarian, it's like I feel like that the only thing that can really do is A, screw over the platform, which is good, and B, it will turn leftists into potential free speech advocates. Like probably not super often, but you know, it can't hurt when they're realizing that this stuff can affect them too. And so that's why I did it. And I also did it once on Twitter to this feminist, but she was really, really bad. Like she was calling for cyberbullying of people, like just very randomly, you know, and like that kind of a thing. And she had, I believe, threatened some sort of MRA in some way. Like I think that she maybe told a female MRA that she thinks that she should die, and it was pretty clear. And so I was like, wait, I can report this woman. And so I reported that, and then I found some of her other tweets where she was it was definitely calls for targeted harassment of Twitter users. And so I reported those, and it actually worked. And I kind of think that I might have got her account suspended or disabled. And it's like, no, but that's like that's like an actual bad thing to do. Like it's not simply just, you know, me getting somebody in trouble for something that's like, you know, like a little threat of violence that's like probably never going to happen. But like actual targeted harassment stuff, like you shouldn't be doing that. And so you know, what if people actually started reporting people like Cat Black, or like combed through the ContraPoints videos and see if there's anything that's kind of offensive. Now, ContraPoints is pretty clever in terms of like not. ContraPoints kind of dances on the rules, you know, like ContraPoints says heinous things.
ContraPoints is very careful, and it's always kind of like a gray thing that like she, you know, always gives a little bit to each side. And then that always creates this illusion of
like the worst.
That's the New York Times too. That's the left in a T. They dance the line, and they're masters of language.
Yeah, the worst thing that I can think of that offhand that ContraPoints has ever said was in the Jordan Peterson video towards the beginning. It's like Jordan Peterson markets himself as a self-help guru, and his main audience is young men, which I guess is okay. Somebody has to whip the neckbeards into shape.
You sound exactly like her, by the way. That's a good question.
You know, people were saying that a lot with my video about like the recent one. It's like, okay, well.
But there's also this like back of the throat kind of thing they do. They speak from the back of their throat, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, totally. No, it does make sense. I know what you're saying. It's like you can do it yourself. That's fine. Yeah, get back there.
Yeah.
So nasally also.
So I feel like maybe, you know, referring to all young men that feel a need for self-help as neckbeards is, I mean, because it is sexism. Like that is very insulting and derogatory towards young men, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. That's definitely not like overboard, you know.
Could you imagine, like you have all these women who are like, I shouldn't have to shave my legs, I shouldn't have to shave my armpits. It's oppressive that we have these beauty standards of like the Meninist counterflip to that, of course, is like, well, why are you shaving my neck beard?
Yeah, like men don't feel like all of humanity, men and women, don't feel pressure to make themselves sexually desirable. Like, does it, you know? Do I like going to the gym? Yeah, sometimes, but still, it's easier to be lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Black Knight Full says it's oppressive that they have the option, and isn't that the tale as old as time?
Well, but even what you were saying, Prince, is so much of what the right does is it constantly, not just on this issue, or at least people who are anti-left, is they react. You know, so. Even it's the left does something and the other side reacts, but the left is still driving the narrative. They still control everything. So and yes, of course, like I don't want to report videos. I don't want to report ContraPoints for things that ContraPoint should be banned for if they're banning people who disagree with that person. But it's because we're free speech absolutists. Like, I support their right to say this, but they can't win because their arguments suck, and conservatives and libertarians and people on the right have been, since Donald Trump, better at the internet. They've been funnier, they've been smarter, they've been more effective, they've been more charming, and they have all the facts, and they expose the left. So, I mean, what we're up against is these institutions that realize this, and so they have to silence the opposition. They realize that they can't win on merit alone and on their own arguments. And no, we should, aside, I think doxing is probably the most horrible thing out there. I'm okay with platforms banning doxing. Other than that, like, it doesn't make any sense. It's such a slippery slope they've gotten into with banning content. And in the last YouTube purge, I believe there were a couple of lefties who were demonetized. And it's just like, we've been saying this to you people, as you people laughed and celebrated each time a conservative was banned on social media. We've been saying all along, they're coming for you next. Once you unleash the censorship beast, it doesn't stop.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know. I think it can make a difference if, like, people just, started using that, reporting people's bad, like find cat black videos that are like horribly racist, anti-Semitic, and even like the anti-gay ones, if there's still any, because there were some before, but she did take the one particularly bad one down, and see what will happen, because I don't, it's like, we've already lost the war for free speech on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, that's something that's, and so, like, maybe
for a while, and maybe you can answer this. Sorry to interrupt, but for a while, YouTube was one of the better ones compared to Twitter and Facebook, wasn't it?
Yeah, but then Media Matters started cracking down and set its sights on YouTube. I think it was just something that they kind of ignored for a while.
Yeah, well, it seems like maybe the YouTube alternatives, at least at this point, are even more viable than the Twitter and Facebook alternatives. Like, was it like BitChute and Dailymotion and things like that? Aren't they?
BitChute is not viable yet, and the reason why is because their search engine is crap.
Well, and then also Dailymotion and like Veo and some of those are kind of shut down, but you have like the streaming alternatives that seem kind of promising. Like DLive and what's the other one? I forget the other one, but like DLive is really funny because they're doing like cute things with cryptocurrencies where like you send people lemons and ice cream, and then they have like a chest, and you can send a link to the treasure chest, and then like within like 30 seconds, anybody who's actually there live can like click on the chest to get back some of the little cryptos, and then they'll send back some of the lemons and ice cream cones, whatever those are actually worth. I'm sure it's like nothing right now, but it's very cute and interesting, smart.
Interesting, cute, fun things happen in the not outside of Silicon Valley on the internet. Like, maybe this is maybe a lot of the accelerationists believe this too. This is a totally necessary evil. You have to scorch the field in order for something else to grow. And like, we went from the internet being the Wild West to being corporate, the epitome of corporate, oppressive, censorious, privacy violating, the worst things possibly imaginable in human civilization is now what Silicon Valley is. So maybe it's a good thing that this is happening, and maybe something better will come of it. I mean, I would like to think so, but
there was also something I wanted to mention. It's just kind of a brief thing, because you were talking about how the left always controls the conversation. This exact point actually came up when Brian Martinez was doing a fireside chat with Hotep Jesus, and that was a point that
I listened to like the first 30 minutes of that, but and it was interesting. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting, but yeah, that is like a totally, like, it's a really important thing that people on the right I don't think are cognizant enough of, which is that the right is always debating on the left's terms. So then, like, even when the right wins, it's like the left won before you even started the debate. They don't even have to win. Like whenever the left wins, it's win more. They win and then they win a second time. If the right wins, the left won and then the right got some of their ground back.
Right.
Like,
You're exactly right.
And like that was the refreshing thing about Trump, was that in his candidacy, there were actually strong positions where like he was setting the tone of the conversation. Like nobody was talking about immigration until he brought it up. Like he made that the conversation, and I think that was like so otherworldly to people. And I think that it's not very obvious that the real reason that was so ridiculous to most people is that was a person on the right side of things actually shaping the conversation for once.
That is so smart, and you are absolutely correct. And that's why they hate him so much, because that had never happened in living memory of someone on the right doing that and taking and dominating the conversation and deciding what the conversation should be about.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe there really is some viability to if you had like a right-wing candidate like really being zero bullshit about it and really shutting down these kinds of like leftist narratives and just not even entertaining it, not even doing the lip service, because that seems to have been like there's all these rules in politics. You have to do all these things in order to be seen as viable. And I think people were really looking for that in Sargon with his recent thing, in British politics. But I guess that there's a lot of criticism that like maybe he didn't approach it in just the right way. But I mean, it was kind of an interesting and new thing he was kind of doing. Like I kind of give him a lot of leeway as far as that was concerned. But to a large degree, I think he did let his opponents define the conversation. And I think that's kind of the key difference between like Trump's success versus Sargon's not success.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe a lot of people, maybe a lot of people just saw Sargon as perhaps, I don't know. I mean, I like Sargon a lot, but perhaps they saw it as more of a statement than a serious candidacy, which is important. I considered doing that here in my district because a socialist was running unchallenged for New York State Senate, and I was like, I should run against, not expecting to win, but just as a statement of, just to draw attention to the fact of what's going on, and that there's an actual socialist who's worse than AOC running for state Senate unchallenged.
Because that's the thing, is you could go up against a socialist, and if you do it in a very kind of measured way, playing on like median voter theory and everything, you could do this kind of centrist sort of approach that would probably predominantly like really win and like have a really good chance of winning. Whereas the alternative of like doing something that's more of a statement, like then your chances of winning are a lot lower in theory. But it seems like you'd have a lot more to gain that way.
Yeah. I agree.
I think that part of the problem is there's a greater affinity with like Christianity towards the right, and Christians they're a little bit too nice, just a little bit. It's a little bit of turn the other cheek is really great in some circumstances, especially like in interpersonal relationships and in like personal morality. But like in politics, it seems like it's a losing recipe.
That what? I'm sorry. That what's a losing recipe?
To like turn the other cheeks in politics, like politics is very much like a battlefield, and it's you can be correct, you can be virtuous on the battlefield. That doesn't mean you're not going to be dead, like what Christians exalt martyrs, and it's sort of like politics by definition is something that like you can't win on political terms and also win on ethical terms at the same time, just like by nature of it.
I get, maybe you're right. I mean, but I think obviously I'm biased, but I'm biased for a reason. I do think that I just think that the right is far more ethical than the left. I mean, the left exists on unethical terms and lying and smearing. I mean, and the right might employ unethical strategies in the war, but fundamentally are more ethical and moral and believe in more ethical and moral things than the left does.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I generally agree with that also.
Yeah, it's it's funny that I should read these out loud if I can find them. I had someone message me the other day. The thing that annoys me, I think more than far left Marxist whatevers, the people I think I despise the most are these people who are clearly like neoliberal, probably wealthy, urban, work in media, whatever, who profess their centrality and that they're centrists and they don't hate Republicans and they understand Republicans, but this, and this, and they also well, I'll criticize the left as well, but I'm a centrist. No, you're not. We are at war. Like we are it is a war, and you pick a side. Pick the side that aligns with you more closely, and join that. And these people who pretend they're so virtuous and so above the fray are such bullshitters. And you get a lot of this. You get a lot of journalists who are like this, who don't understand their own bias, and it only exposes how completely detached they are from the reality of the situation. And these are the same people who virtue signal all day long about how divided our country is and how horrible it is, and can't we all just come together and let's have a discussion? Yeah, discussion's nice. I've tried it thousands of times. It doesn't work when you're dealing with the left. So it's war, and they don't understand what's going on. And by the way, I think it's a beautiful thing. These people who lament how divided we are as a country. I'm like, this is America at its finest. This is a war of a non-violent, non-bloody war of ideas and opinions. Now the left uses disgusting, underhanded tactics like censorship and banning, which makes them evil and despicable. But still, the what is going on in our culture and our society is beautiful. It's what this country was intended for. It is. Everyone is virulently passionate about politics at the moment. And one of my actually the woman who made me want to become a journalist and a writer is Joan Didion. Not her fiction sucks, but her nonfiction is not the two most recent books, but her nonfiction from the 60s, 70s, and 80s is unparalleled and beautiful reporting. And she made me want to become a writer when I read her in high school. And but she has a story. She wrote a story called Insider Baseball about I believe it was about the Reagan-Dukakis election. And she basically,
Bush.
Sorry, yeah, Bush. And she had said, she had basically said, I'm sure Joan Didion to lefty and whatever, but she, I can't believe she's still alive, by the way. But she said that her sort of the portrait she painted in that essay was about basically an American class, and this was whatever year that was, that is told by the media constantly that they don't care, that they're stupid, that they don't care about politics, that voter turnout, and all you need to do is look at voter turnout to see that Americans are just stupid and they don't care about politics. Mm-hmm. And she basically said, no, you know what? Not caring and not turning out, whether you agree with this or not, she was sort of standing up for the American people and saying not voting and not caring about politics is a political act. It's people saying that they are disillusioned and fed up and disgusted by the system, and so they've dropped out of it. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is up for people to decide. But we are seeing the exact opposite of that today, where everyone is fervently passionate and fervently involved in politics. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a good thing.
And then still not voting, or they didn't, at least in the last presidential election. Hey, but I need to defend the label of centrism because I was actually grabbing water and stuff while you.
I did call you a centrist in a tweet recently, but I didn't mean that as an insult. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, okay. But here's the thing. So I am a centrist with a pretty open, circumstantial right-wing bias, just based on the particular heinousness of the left right now. And then maybe that's never actually going to change. And maybe I'll eventually be like, okay, maybe I'm just right wing, but I feel like it's particularly bad right now. Like I learned about the Clintons and I'm like, no, it was bad then too. Okay. So, maybe that's just me being kind of naive. But also I like the Bush Republicans were so bad, so it's like, I can't, like, if it was a typical Republican president right now, I couldn't say that I would be defending them. And, like, there's so many wins that Trump has. Like, he kind of, he proved me wrong about my stance about the southern border, which used to be, okay, that's an interesting thing to care about. I don't know if it's a real problem. Okay, it's a real problem. Yeah. Okay, good on you for calling that one way ahead of time, And that was just me, like, not really realizing. And a lot of people just didn't really realize. Like, he must have had some insider information for a long time. And so I openly admit, like, every time I talk on air about my actual, like, my centrism, is that, like, I'm so incredibly specific about all of these different issues that I feel like I contradict a lot of typically held things about a right-wing person or a left-wing person, and it's more fair to call me a centrist, but the current bias I have is towards the right. Now, what I kind of feel, and this ties back to what you were just saying, is that if more people actually had a clue about what's going on in the history of things, like, and I don't think it's that impossible for people to learn. Now, maybe that's me being naive. Like, maybe it's just that I've had a lot of time to really, really investigate things. But, like, if more people were simply watching that Intersectional Feminism is Communist Particle Board video, like, the information within it is so undeniable and it's so damning, like, it's not even my video presentation style. It's just like, oh yeah, did you actually know that the Communist Party was all intersectional before World War II? Like, there was this black woman basically being like, put me in charge of everything because I'm triply oppressed, and like, did you know that? I think that would make a lot of difference to people, and just like all these other things that I think that there would be more of a centrist type thing. But I think that people on both the right and the left, like, don't really understand each other well enough. And particularly the left. Like, the left is just completely wrong about the right. Now, the right gets a lot of things wrong about the left too. Like, for example, something that I recently just discovered, a lot of people keep saying that the word racism was invented by Trotsky. Have you heard that?
I have heard that.
It's not true.
That's true. I didn't.
It's not true. It is that racism had been around since either the late 1800s or just around the turn of the 20th century. But Trotsky, in around the 30s, invented the term. He invented the fake definition of racism: the power plus race, power plus prejudice equals racism. So it's but the actual definition of racism that makes sense was already around for a while. So for right-wing people to get sucked into thinking that he invented the word, that's such a egregiously horrible example of them accidentally playing by the
okay, so maybe Trotsky didn't invent it, but in the spirit of it, the word racism was invented by progressives, wasn't it, in the early 20th century? Like,
I mean, maybe kind of, but like
but it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a word, and now it's the most powerful word in
But okay, but to say that
the most powerful word is the N-word.
Okay, no, wait, no. Okay, but he invented the fake definition. He invented the fake definition, and so if you were to subscribe to the idea, which many right people are doing, that he invented the word racism, then that would mean that the fake definition was the original definition, and that's a horribly stupid thing to do.
Yeah, the right can be very clumsy and awful when it comes to stuff like that's a perfect example of what you just gave. They can be very clumsy and awful with that, and then spread it and then get very hysterical. But I think that just goes back to the right being kind of, because of the culture we live in, fundamentally reactionary.
So what I'm saying is, though, I think that if people were just informed, like the left is just lied to about why the right thinks things, like the idea that, people are against abortion because men want to control women's bodies, which they really believe. Like, that's just so absurdly stupid and wrong. Like, that's just not true. And like all of these other things, that I think that if people were actually informed, the center would look a lot more like what I would be ideally, and that's why it's important to me to consider myself some sort of centrist, because I'm looking at things in the idealized version of what things are. But I also accept what you're saying about, like, yeah, we're fighting a war, because there is a war, and it is started by the bad people, and we kind of have to defend ourselves, which is why I'm so hard on the left, why I cut so much slack to the right, especially the type of new right people that we have right now, as opposed to the awful Bush type conservatives. And I admit to my contemporary bias towards the right, but it's overall a lot more complicated to me, and I just think that has to do with ignorance of everybody else.
I think you're right, and yes, and thank you for calling me out a bit, because I suppose you aren't. I wouldn't put you in that this sort of centrist, self-described centrist I was describing, comes with an element of being of being absolutely smug. There's a smugness to them, and a detachment, and a
non-committal, like
holier than thou, above the fray, when they're actually the sort of definition of the neoliberal establishment. And they 100% live in Manhattan or places of the such, and don't have any connection to the outside world. You, on the other hand, you are curious, you're interested, you want to find out information, and the more information that you find out and that you dig, and this is much like my story, when I was sort of sleepwalking on the left and then actually started wanting to learn and care about things, the more what you uncover, you base your opinions on that. So someone like you who identifies as a centrist is different from that kind of smug liberal in sheep's clothing, because you're advocating for you want us to just get along, and you're more of like maybe like a 1960s JFK Democrat, like actually like wanting to get along and understand, and that is perfectly respectable, and I totally understand it and support it. I come from the place also that I'm like, everything is so evil that it's all out war right now. The left is so powerful and so evil and so corrupt and filled with so many lies and so destructive to our society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like, there are things that like I feel like the right is kind of wrong about. Like, I do actually believe in some amount of social welfare. Like, I do believe that. And I do believe in some amount of regulations. Like, this whole idea that we shouldn't regulate social media companies because regulations are bad is just the most moronic thing in the world to me. And it's always been. Like, I made early videos just being like, okay, guys, I get it that you're like, you have reasons to be against regulations, but really? You know what I mean? Like, really?
even just saying, making a law that says you have to respect First Amendment speech is like, that's not regulation. I mean, it is regulation. Yeah. It's not like going in there and breaking up the company and going through all the documents, saying you have to respect this or we're going to fine you. It's the most harmless bit of regulation you could possibly imagine. You have to respect the rights of these. That's all it would take.
Yeah, but so many people are. It's like they're not really thinking logically. They're like just towing a party line. And so I'm like, well, if that's the party line, I'm not going to pretend that I'm entirely okay with that, or the political affiliation line or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so it's for reasons like that I feel like it's worthwhile to call myself a centrist. But but centrist with a right wing bias.
Well, because you have to be sane.
Yeah, and but like I feel like there could be a point where society does change enough where I'm starting to notice more and more things that the right is doing wrong, and I'm just like, okay, I gotta admit that maybe I do have a little bit of a left-wing bias again. So maybe it won't come anytime soon, maybe it will never come, but I just want to leave okay, I guess my overall vision is that the left and the right actually need each other. I think that pendulum swings, we should acknowledge that, and that's why my overall philosophy is trying to see the amount of merit in both sides. And but right now pendulum is still so far to the left that I can't pretend that I'm not wanting to push it right.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully put, and I do believe the left and the right need each other. I just wish the right had more ground, but we have to keep each other in check. It's the same thing of the right became authoritarian and awful in the '90s when they were trying to ban violent video games.
Yeah.
Like Marilyn Manson, and it was like that was an example of the excesses of the right, and now we are in a place of excess of the left. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, it's actually far worse when the left has excesses in the right, but at least in American politics.
Yeah.
I think that you.
Yeah, and I remember that period. I remember, when things were starting to change, when Clinton had gotten into office, but the religious right was still strong, and I would meet these kids that there was this kid at my school named Philip, and nobody in my middle school, in the inner city of Seattle, right in the middle of Seattle, he was the one Christian kid that was really outspoken about being a Christian, and it was his mission to basically to try to save people. I mean, he was always on the defense though, because nobody else was like that, and we were basically that's dumb. And so I remember getting to all these, everybody would have a go at him, being like, well, Christians are hypocrites. What about this? And he's like, well, those are bad Christians. Those are not real Christians. And blah, 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 blah. And it was so irritating talking to this guy, his endless apologetics for these things that didn't make sense. And it was just so clear that he was repeating, I don't know if he was a Republican, he probably wasn't, but it was so clear that he was repeating these lines that were fed to him that he had never truly thought about, and unless to defend Christianity, that was the only amount that he would be willing to think about it. It was so clear that he had never truly challenged himself, so it was easy to realize that and that remained true during the Bush administrations. One of the best documentaries I've ever seen, and this is one of the only true documentaries that has come out that actually had a theatrical release that is really, really worth watching. And when I say true actual documentary, Chadwick, you probably know this, Spacepan, I'm not entirely sure if you'll know this or not, but most what are sold as documentaries, like the Michael Moore crap, they're not documentaries. They're actually technically persuasive film essays, because they it's not just a document, it's a it's not just an account of something, it's all about an opinion trying to make you feel a certain way. A true documentary is basically just the facts, just very little, this is where we're going to, and then showing it and that kind of a thing. And that's what Jesus Camp is. They went to one of these far evangelical, crazy churches. I'm not sure where this was, had a summer camp for kids where they were training them to be preachers. and things like that. And the people in it were so crazy, and it was so obviously tied to politics. Like, they revealed so much about themselves and how they were given tax breaks, and how much, like, one of the really, really big ones came and spoke at, and he's, kids are going to be like, yeah, I want to be like you. I want to be like the best preacher on earth. And he's like, what, even better than me? And then he's like, has an interview, and he's all like, yeah, well, we are one of the most single influential forces in politics. Our people who listen to us vote how we say, and they will get 30% of the vote just from having us on our side. And you can better believe that with all of our people donating money and the tax breaks we get paid handsomely. And then it's like he was drunk, and he was like, giggles, it's a good life, like crap like that. And it was like, whoa, this is messed up.
Well,
like,
you can't. All right, I remember.
I know that you don't think evangelicals are that bad, and I can highly accept the fact that they are probably not nearly so bad now. But if you watched that video, it was messed up.
I did. I watched it years ago.
Oh, you did watch it? Okay.
Yeah, I watched it years ago. I don't remember much about it, but what you described, yeah, I remember that being the gist of the film. But
yeah.
you can't call that. You can't say there's a true documentary in the same way there's no true journalism, because everything is biased. Everything is to a slant. You don't know what they edited. You don't know what they cut out. You don't know what
sure, but it was mostly really long segments. Like, they would show somebody speaking, usually for, like, there would be parts where it was like 30 seconds, but it was like often parts that would go on for like no less than 2 minutes, often longer. Like that crazy lady who would speak in tongues a lot, and she would say the craziest stuff that like wouldn't have anything to do with each other. She was like, oh yeah, we are powerful and we are coming, onward Christian soldiers and animal rights people, vegan people, they're shaking in their boots. It was
well, that's funny, and I think I would like that one. But take the same situation. So say someone like me went into a Jesus camp, who is open-minded and gay. Like, would I have produced the exact same documentary, or would have been different?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Would you focus on their better points?
Well, I probably would have tried. I would not have shied away from the absurdity, because
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with exposing.
How can you not? How can you not include that?
You can expose the absurdity of something like that, and then also put a human face to it. And you can also show the better points while it's still being absurd, which that documentary didn't do. That would be the approach that I would have taken to something like that. So you can't say that it's not totally unbiased and like a true documentary, because the point was to humiliate Christians and to make them look ridiculous.
Well, and I will say, I'm someone who, like, I've gone to Bible camps. Like, when I used to be Christian and I was like in middle school and everything. And like for like in the summer, we'd go to like a Bible camp for I think like a week or maybe like a week and a half. And like I really looked forward to it, and I really liked it. I think I went like 3 or 4 times, and it was like really fun. And yeah, I think that like comparing that to like Jesus camp, like totally different experiences. I think that definitely that particular camp they were highlighting in that documentary was probably the exception, not so much the rule. I think if you did like a documentary on the camp I went to, it would be a little bit more kind of wholesome and probably a lot less entertaining.
Yeah, I think you're right, but that doesn't mean that those films also shouldn't be made, because we love the absurd. At least I especially do. But
well, and I'm sure a lot of Christians like to kind of have that being like, wow, like we definitely don't want to turn out like that. And maybe even people like involved in that actual camp kind of looked at that and said, you know what, maybe we did stray away a little bit and we can kind of fix things up.
Well, and that's also kind of the bigger picture, I think, too, is that one of the benefits of the left is that if they expose the excess of the right, it just makes the right better. That's what we're going through now. The right.
Yeah.
Because they're constantly slandered and portrayed so horribly that it does make them better and more reasonable. And that's why these gay people, these gay activists, and these triggered gays are so obsessed with evangelical Christianity, from not Islam, mind you, but evangelical Christianity, which has not had any political power since the 90s. It's been totally void of a platform on the right, especially under President Trump. That's not to say they shouldn't have a say, but Christianity is broad and diverse, and they focus on that. So in a way, it is a benefit to the right because it makes you better.
Yeah. Tim Pool is really right on when he says that the right ends up really looking good, even just from all of the censorship, because the more, like I have actually started to come around and sort of side with you, Spaceman. Laura Loomer is kind of amazing. Like I sort of, she's
she is a gift. She is an absolute gift.
She's a national treasure.
Yeah, like she's like I don't even want to say crazy because like I feel like if you hung out with her it would be pretty.
I know her personally. She's a nut job, and it's
fantastic. Oh, she is.
And I tell her that to her face.
But she's really entertaining and she's kind of brilliant.
No, she is, and she's fierce and doesn't care about any. Doesn't care. No, she's. I always say like okay, one of my great a good judge of someone is our society better with or without them? Our society is inherently better with Laura Loomer in it. Even if you hate her just for the entertainment value.
One thing I saw pointed out kind of recently, I didn't realize at first, but like when she did her whole stunt where she like puts the Star of David pinned to her and she's like handcuffed to the headquarters of Twitter. She handcuffed herself in such a way that they could still like open the door and get in, right? So they look, they're just like, oh, there's Laura Loomer. They just kind of sigh, just like walk past her awkwardly, and then keep going on their business.
It's so genius. It's so genius.
Yeah, I was
and then didn't she go to like the CEO's, like Jack Dorsey's like home and just like screaming at him, and then people are like, hey, do you want to call the cops? And then he's like, no, just let her hang out in the woods or whatever. Like,
no, she did more than that. She well, that's interesting because she went to Jack Dorsey's home in San Francisco and projected on the side of his home the names of everyone who's been banned from Twitter. And the next day or 2 days later is when she was kicked off Facebook and Instagram.
And then she went to the office on Facebook, and that's what I really watched.
Yeah, yeah, that was a really good one.
Oh yeah, and then you're the one who told us to watch the documentary that she made with Jacob Wohl about Ilhan Omar.
All right, well, let's be honest.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, you have to watch it.
Oh, I watched it. It was a flop. It was kind of embarrassing. I'm sorry to say.
It was so funny. I loved it.
You thought it was funny? I thought it was. I'm like, they didn't uncover anything. It was kind of like wah wah.
Well, yeah, just like the soundtrack, and then the part where they're just awkwardly shuffling the affidavit underneath the door. Like, they're gonna serve someone their affidavit. That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
They're the best.
I mean, are the people on the right not intrinsically more interesting characters than anyone on the left? Like, can we just acknowledge that?
Yeah, because like people on the left, you get like Carlos Maza like crying all over Twitter and like
they're so not daring
to them. Whereas like the right has like Laura Loomer, and it's like
and Maza, I saw that he someone sent it to me that this is ages ago. He tweeted about me when I wrote that profile of Milo for Out Magazine, which is how I met Milo, and he basically said something like, "Oh, like." Checks the author of the piece. Of course, his name is Chadwick. Is what he said. Which is like the
what does that even mean?
Oh, I'll tell you what it means. The left. I get this constantly on social media. The left does this to me. They're like, "Oh, of course your name's Chadwick. Oh, coming from my name Chadwick." I'm like, because they're very stupid and they're very out of touch with culture. Chadwick is a working class Southern name. They think it sounds like aristocratic, so they think that I'm like grew up yachting off.
That's you're like eating watercress with every meal.
Yeah, they think I grew up on cucumber sandwiches and yachting off Kennebunkport. And instead, I'm like, no, Chadwick is a working class Southern name, and most Chadwicks are black. They're poor black Southerners, most Chadwicks. But it really funny coming from Carlos Maza, who went to Wake Forest University, which charges $80,000 a year for tuition.
Whoa.
I think I paid $8,000 a year for tuition. I didn't know anyone until I moved to New York City who even would fathom spending $80,000 a year on tuition. So it's like things like that are so funny to me,
Yeah. I mean, the left, they have no creative freedom because they are confined to this like small little, like it's either just, hey, Marxism is cool, trans people are cool, black people are better than all the other skin colors, especially if they're Islamic, and then everybody on the right sucks, let's lie about them. Like that's basically all they got to work with.
Yeah, you're totally right. That's what it is. Yeah, it's oh my god! And did you see because it's Pride Month, happy Pride fags. But did you? Oh, I don't have to worry about you being demonetized.
No, you still no, because I can get a channel strike for.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Just once is not a big deal.
Yeah, but I said the potato one earlier, so your channel's basically done.
I said figs. It's just my accent. FIG.
We're just talking about fruits and potatoes. That's all.
Right. But I was delighting in seeing Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib tweeting about LGBT pride and blah blah blah.
What did she say?
Oh my god!
Can you screen share it for us?
It's on my Twitter not too long ago.
Okay, I'll look it up and screen share it.
But I responded to them. Oh, they did this. They said the usual like pandering talking points, like we support, happy Pride, we support LGBT, blah blah blah, wishing you a safe, whatever they all say, all the Democrats, which is so funny. I mean, I even commented on Rashida's thing and said, I've seen photos from Tel Aviv Pride. It looks lit. Oh my God, those Jews are so hot. Haven't heard much about Gaza Pride. Can you help? Can you inform?
Yeah,
but
Jewish guys are hot.
They'll have smoke bombs of different colors.
Just
everywhere of just different.
Yeah, it's tequila on the rocks, or as they call them, stones, I guess.
So,
oh yeah, that should be a drink. Why isn't there a drink named tequila yet?
Tequila on the rocks, yeah, and it's what, the blood of a homosexual with malt liquor.
Or it's like
what is tequila again? I'm forgetting. I'm forgetting my Arabic.
Tequila is the. Go ahead, Spaceman. Do you want to?
I was just gonna say, basically, it's that Muslims are allowed to lie and misrepresent their faith
in
circumstances, and it's very, very hotly debated what those would be. And of course, the very concept of it means that you literally can't trust anyone's testimony on what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a tenet of Islam that you're allowed to lie and support things that are against Islam if it advances Islam.
So I'm looking for something. Was it a retweet of her?
It should be on my Twitter feed. Let me see if
because I've gone down to June 5th. That's where I'm at.
It was last week at some point. I responded. It got a lot of let's see.
Oh, I found it. Okay, I can screen share it. Hold on.
And then if you go to oh yeah, I have tequila with salt on the rocks. I responded to Ilhan, and then I responded to Rashida. And if you go to Rashida's actual tweet, I also commented on that. I said, "Happy Pride to everyone in Gaza. Folks are going to be off their heads at this year's parade."
Oh God.
Zing.
Okay, I do this. Oh, it's not. It's doing the thing where they're not letting me. Hey, Derek, can you turn on your camera for a moment and see if we can get this to work? Because it's doing the thing where it's saying that I'm not allowed to screen share because it's only audio.
Wait, you want me to screen share?
No, I want you to turn on your camera because it says screen sharing is not available in audio only sessions.
Wait, I'm still in my gym jams. I need a blanket.
Just don't point the camera away from yourself.
It's really complicated. I actually can't because I have like a multi-shelf thing, and like my laptop's on the lower shelf because it's more convenient for typing. Except that I can't see, but the screen doesn't work anyway. It's just a mess. But okay, I got it. So that's the thing.
Well, also, Prince, if you look just below the tweet just before that is when I shared a video of a Muslim in Toronto saying that executing gays.
I've seen that.
May sound unfair, but it's the law under Sharia, and that Canada will soon be a Muslim country.
Yeah, and everybody's freaking out about that one like mayor that's was clearly taken out of context, trying to say that he was advocating for killing of LGBT people, but it really looks more like he was saying that that they because he said kill them off. I got the impression that he was saying that, probably more likely than not, that he was saying kill off these ideas that like this. And and even if he did actually mean that, it doesn't necessarily mean that, like, if he were to say the only way to get rid of all this, like socialists, gay people, is to kill them off, it doesn't, like, he's gonna say, no, that's not actually what I meant. Like, I don't mean that we should do that. I'm just saying that would be the only way to get rid of them. As opposed to the people who openly advocate for Sharia law, and they're like, yeah, the people die. That's the rules. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're right. Oh, I wasn't familiar with that mayor. Was that who was that?
It was some guy. I'll look it up. Because it's now, it's like the new. Oh my God! See, the right is so homophobic. It's, people in our own country want to kill the gays. It's like, yeah, plenty of people do. They're Muslims.
Did you see how insane they went when President Trump tweeted about wishing everyone a happy Pride Month?
No.
You did? Oh my God, that was I guess it was last week. Oh, they went. He was like basically wishing everyone a happy Pride Month, and he said, like, LGBT people have been a huge contribution to our society, and he also reiterated his administration's plan to decriminalize homosexuality worldwide. Yeah. It's like, how can you even argue, like, what? And they went insane about it.
Like, what are they? They're like, no, you want to.
Oh, well,
you didn't even write that. You didn't even write that.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
really spreading the conspiracy theories and blah blah. And there's a tranny named Charlotte Collier or something. I didn't know that she was transgender, who works for HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, which is among the worst of the worst.
Remember not to say the granny word that starts with the T.
Sorry, I forgot. So she's a granny who begins with the T, and which I didn't care about. Whatever. She and I'm being respectful enough to use her pronouns. But she did like a 27 long tweet fit. In each one, sharing articles about like things that the Trump administration had done
to trans people,
against LGBTs, but specifically trans. And
because it's the only thing that you could even argue that he's done against LGBT.
I went through and I did 27 tweets debunking each and every single one of them. Totally.
Did she say anything about gay men?
She blocked me because of it.
But did she? But was any of the anti-LGBT things?
Yes, actually, a lot of them were lies about. So one of the things she railed about was the Trump administration has denied visas to same-sex partners of diplomats. And she shared a Daily Beast article about this. Well, all you have to do, it's a Daily Beast, so you have to read about 9 paragraphs down to get to the facts. And the point of that was, no, the Trump administration said that all diplomat, any person accompanying a diplomat, they have to be married. That includes gay people. That's all it said.
Yeah. Well, by the way, Derek, are you trying to turn on your camera?
Yeah, well, it is on. I'm not sure what the point of it was, though.
So I can screen share.
Oh, I can screen share without turning on the camera.
No, you can't.
I've never turned on the camera before to do that.
Just do it. When I
on.
Derek, your camera feed
it doesn't look like you do.
Really?
Maybe it's because you didn't at the beginning, and so now it's just not going to let us.
Now mine's showing. It's showing on my little thing.
That's weird.
You guys got to present me.
It says screen sharing is not supported in audio only mode.
Weird. Oh, okay. So then I'll click camera.
Huh.
Now is it working?
No. Okay, whatever. I don't get to
screen share, and then I'll turn on the camera, and then I'll hit screen share.
Okay.
Is that working?
No, let's just not bother with this. It doesn't seem like it's going to work. YouTube,
That's weird.
YouTube hates me. What can I say? We all knew that. Oh, it is showing on yours. Okay, I see it, but it doesn't show. See, it keeps not working. Maybe I need to like update Google Hangouts because it keeps. Okay, so could you go to Chadwick's Twitter and let's like look at this stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, among
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself and I'll be back in a second. Okay.
Okay, I'll chatter. Yeah, among the tweets that Charlotte person, her claims against when you asked if it was only transgenders or also gay people, I think there was one where she had said, it was a rule against like surrogate. Oh, that's my yeah.
What's her name? Charlotte what?
Charlotte Clymer or something. Yeah, that's her. That the rainbow flag. CL.
Mr.
No, down.
Oh,
That one. Yeah.
she just looks like she's annoying.
I mean, I didn't even know from that picture, but go to the Instagram and you're like, wowzers. But where there's plenty of selfies. But well, someone that I'm not going to make any claims that could get.
Oh, so this is her response to Trump's tweet. This thread.
She pinned it. Her big 42,000 likes. 42,000 likes. She did.
Tomorrow is the start of Pride Month. This tweet by @RealDonaldTrump is cynical propaganda. Since day one, this White House has viciously attacked the rights and lives of LGBTQ people, and I am now going to lay out all the ways they've done that.
That's the thread. 27 tweets.
Oh,
I went through and tweeted a rebuttal to each and every one, and then this person blocked me.
For the past 2 years, the White House has not formally recognized it. This year, for the first time, neither will the State Department.
Who cares?
Yeah,
so,
right?
This is acknowledging the State Department has recognized it under Trump, number one.
Within hours of Trump swearing in, pages of the LGBTQ rights and recognition were removed from government websites.
Yeah, because they were archived, which happens every time a new administration takes over.
I don't see why that should matter.
Well, it shouldn't matter.
I see why
I said, like, what gay person in America is going to whitehouse.gov looking for resources? Considering
I need to go to the whitehouse.gov to know how to be gay and not die.
Yeah, but yeah, like what
First thing they tell you in the gay handbook.
Yeah, exactly. And the page was archived. Obama was virtue signaling. Okay, next.
Trump and Pence have sought to remove questions on sexual orientation from the 2020 census in order to erase LGBTQ people from official counts.
Yeah, again, what are you even talking about? Why would that be a question on the census? And these people think that sexuality and gender is so fluid. Does like all 97 letters of the alphabet soup get a check mark? Get a box? Like what? Can you imagine what a mess that would be? Why are you trying to poll people's sexuality?
And I wonder if it is just like the vanilla gay ones that are being censored, or if it is like the full spectrum questions. Oh, screw you, Washington Times. You're incognito. I have to always use incognito to use your stupid website. Okay. I just want to know what question it is. Why is this even an article? Just tell me what question.
Yeah, what's the question? I honestly didn't even fucking read the article she linked to because it just seems so ridiculous off the bat.
This seems a lot more convoluted. Instead, the 2020 census will return to the same age, race, occupation, marital status, and other areas of inquiry that have been used for years. So it sounds like they're just rejecting a new change.
They're rejecting Obama's injection of cultural Marxism into the census.
Yeah, so then let's see this one. Despite being included since 2010, Trump and Pence attempted to have the Commerce Department remove sexual orientation generated from their equal employment policy, which this is something that I take a hard stance on. That I know we have at least a couple of viewers that like get upset with me when I say it. They think I'm a monster, but I think that employers absolutely should have the right to discriminate based on sexual orientation.
I think that such an employer...
And race, and religion, and gender, like all of it. Just all of it.
Well...
And the right to refuse service. I'm just like 1,000% on board with all of that. Like,
but it's an area where the free market has actually won and succeeded. Because if any employer were to discriminate against someone on sexual orientation, which is impossible to prove unless they were fired specifically for being gay, it would be an international media firestorm, and the business would go out of business. Like the free market won that one. Like that's the free market.
Exactly. And the only examples you have of this sort of thing involve like government imposed segregation. So there's not even much evidence to suggest that this is something that people even want to do. They always complain about the profit motive all the time, and it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like either the profit motive is what's going to prevail, or you literally think that companies are going to collude together to not make more money. They're going to be, we don't want black people's money. It's just like it's an insane sort of a thing. I think you have to be a crazy person to even believe that. They find like really ridiculous fringe cases. But anyway, but the other thing too is like if you are working for a company and they would fire you but for some kind of law like this, what are you doing? Why would you work for them? Why do you want that to be where you go?
Well, exactly. And even in that, I don't remember what that article said. It's from BuzzFeed, so there you go. But I'm almost certain that contained in that article is probably the headline is completely unrelated to the reality. You know what I mean?
Probably. It's probably something.
Which always happens. Which is the basis of her entire thread. It's headlines unrelated to the reality.
Yeah, like one that will happen a lot is they'll what is it? They'll complain about they'll say like oh, look at all this money that these churches have squandered. But what they're doing is they're adding up like taxes that weren't paid because they're exempt, and they'll count that as like the government giving churches money.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Stuff like that. Let's see, what's this next one? Against the expert advice of military leadership, medical authorities, budget analysts, the U.S. 70% of Americans, and the armed forces of allied.
Wait! I had something to say. Hold on.
From the military.
Well, we all know about that.
Stupid.
Hold on. I have something to say. I was away getting water, but the thing.
Did you watch Strangers with Candy?
Yeah.
I love that show.
Amy Sedaris. I got something to say.
Yeah. I got something to say.
Wait! I got something to say. Did she call it? I love the one where they were like going on a field trip, and for some reason she had to tell everybody that the one girl was retarded.
Yeah, she had to rat on her.
Yeah, I don't remember how that worked, but it was
the 2-part cult episode.
Yeah.
I'm gonna set the welcome
My favorite moment in all of that show was the time that she relapsed at the end of one of the seasons, and like one of the cool kids at school convinced her to smoke a toke of a joint, and she's like, "Oh, I'm not really into that." She's like, "Oh, just do it just once," and she's like, "Well, okay." And so she like takes a toke, and the girl's like, "Close your eyes. What do you see?" And there's like a skull, and it's like cackling with a bunch of like flames behind it, but it's entirely silent. And they're like, she's like, "What do you see?" And she's like, "Nothing unusual."
And then she's like, "I see a kaleidoscope of colors. I see browns and grays and browns."
You know what?
This is a sidetrack because I was going to say something about this allegation that there's companies that discriminate against Black people. What this is reminding me of, and is how there was this allegation that allegedly Tommy Hilfiger went on Oprah Winfrey and said that he doesn't want Black people buying his clothes because they're not for them, which would be like so non-believable. They were clearly not only like there were clearly clothes that were kind of made for Black people, like they were designed in such a way that the logo was really big in the type of way that is very common with Black fashion. They like showing off labels, like really, really huge labels. And yet nobody ever saw the clip. Tommy Hilfiger's company denied it. Oprah Winfrey denied it herself. And yet the myth persists. Like people still believe that maybe he actually did that, and it's just so funny. And I'll get back to this later because I want to talk about this notion that like people in the Pacific Northwest will die, like will go to their graves saying that Proud Boys just beat people up at random, and they're like all they fearmonger, like it's like 15 Proud Boys spotted, better be safe guys. And they and like supposedly one of the leaders of Proud Boys Portland declared open season on queers, and that's just so obviously not true. And it's like, okay, if this type of thing was true, how has there never been a single incident recorded of a Proud Boys starting any fight? Like but I want to get back to that later. So let's move on.
No, you're totally right. And I was hanging out with some Proud Boys last night, and they're lovely guys who do not give a fuck about sexual orientation.
Whoopi Goldberg admitted that they were cool.
You saw that. You saw that video. That was an amazing video of a bunch of Proud Boys in what amounts to in dialogue with Whoopi Goldberg, and they ended up like taking selfies and having and kind of coming to a place of understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. But like, okay, let's move on this list.
Yeah, so the next one was transgender people in the military, which
Blah.
That's, we all know what that is that's the
like,
big
it turns out being dependent on hormones when you're in combat situations could be relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next three are about Betsy DeVos.
Yeah, so
does it have to do with like getting rid of protections for mandatory pronouns on universities or something?
No,
basically, yeah.
No, basically all that and they all have to do. Actually, I don't think that they all have to do with Trump getting rid of the Department of Education's directive, not a law or whatever, but directive from Obama that students must be able to use public school students must be able to use any restroom that coincides with their gender identity. So, and this doesn't even
which is dumb.
Yeah, it doesn't say you need a doctor's note. It doesn't say you need consent from the parents or anything. It just says any student can say, "I'm a woman and I get to use that bathroom."
So basically, twans.
And Trump got rid of it. I mean, it was such a horrible and it was such a Hail Mary virtue signaling in Obama's second term.
Well, and totalitarian.
And totalitarian. And what this directive does is kick it back to local governments, local school districts, and states, which is the federalist system. It's how it should be.
Oh, I'm not. Okay, sorry. I need to be screen sharing. Space.
Did you stop? Because I've been. Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot because I wasn't looking at. I can't see it on my Hangout window. So, but yeah, the thing is, it's dumb, and it's just basically like it's like forcing people on their knees for the sake of it. Like, I have this much power over you that I can do this like ridiculously silly thing because reasons. Like, that's I don't think it really actually makes all that many trans people happy, aside from the fact that it's like, okay, now we get to make people lick our boots.
Well, and the real thing is, let's say it made every single trans person super happy without exception. It's gonna make a lot more women unhappy, and not for like the normal pearl clutching conservative reason of, oh my god, the girls are gonna get assaulted by the trans men, like, oh, whatever. No, what really is gonna happen is a bunch of women are gonna get misgendered, and they're gonna insist that they're women, and people are gonna be like, no, you look like a dude, like you, right? Like that. I guess. Well, I guess that's the argument in favor of it. Like, to me,
that was the whole thing with Milo Yiannopoulos when one of their big arguments was he like doxed a trans student and blah 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 at the school, and the situation was when he gave a speech about this person and showed this person's photo. The person wasn't a student at the time. The person was suing the school, which then makes him fair game for public criticism and to be acknowledged. And he was basically, you look at this person and it's a boy in a dress, short hair, some thrift store clothing, like some little skirt that he bought at the thrift store. No effort to transition, and he was suing the university because they wouldn't let him use the women's locker room. Yeah, this needs to be called out. And that goes in line with what this is. What this is.
Yeah. So now the one that we have on the screen right now, Trump and Pence ordered Betsy DeVos and the Department of Education. I don't like, what are the non-discrimination protections? Like, what are they? Do we know?
Well, it's probably just that if you have a claim that you've been discriminated against on that basis.
Trump and Pence ordered education to rescind not. No, it's exactly what I just said. It's the bathroom thing.
Oh, okay. Let's move down then.
Next one. Under guidance of Trump and Pence, DeVos and the Department of Education then said it would reject civil rights complaints of transgender students. Like, I really think it's just the same thing.
Yeah.
God, why?
No, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Whatever. I'm just gonna not read your article if you're gonna put it behind a paywall. DeVos has also refused to rule out federal funding for schools that discriminate against LGBTQ students and declined to state she would otherwise intervene should discriminate occur.
Yeah, same article.
Yeah, same crap. But like,
the thing is that Obama's directive said why it was so evil was said that the federal government would take away funding from any school that didn't allow a boy who said he's a girl with no doctor, no note from a counselor, no parent consent to using a female restroom. So that's what that's about. So Obama said, if you don't allow this, we're going to take away your funding. And now we're getting rid of that.
Yeah, no, it made, people, it didn't just put trans people, it put transgenders into a privileged class.
That's exactly right.
It's so incredibly messed up, and like people refuse to even admit that transgenders are a thing, even though everybody knows they are.
Yeah, I mean, and that it was the same Hail Mary Obama did with trans in the military. And by the way, you know what? I wrote a big feature for Out Magazine about trans people in the military a couple of years ago. And so I've met these people. I've interviewed them, many transgenders in the military. One of them, I won't say her name, but she's a lovely, lovely human being. We're still friends. She's a Republican, and she's really upset by the directive against trans in the military. But she's so conservative, and she doesn't agree with it. But I agree with it, and we can discuss it. It's like I got a friend. This old fuck buddy actually, who is a hardcore patriot, Trump supporter, and to this day he is still. He's probably like in his late 20s, early 30s, and to this day he's still devastated that he was denied from the military when he was 18 because of a very minor medical issue. Like he's devastated. He wants nothing more than to serve his country, and it still hurts him to this day, and I see it.
Like Captain America before he got the super serum.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not familiar with his backstory, but yeah, with Captain America,
he was like this super skinny, sickly guy that kept trying to get into the military, but he couldn't do it.
Oh, is that right? Well, this guy's like buff and hot and has an enormous cock, and it was a very, very minor medical issue that you would raise your eyebrows and be like, "What? That got you kicked out, or that got you banned from the military?" Same thing with transgender. It's like, this is such an extremely complex issue that there's no resolved science on, and it requires lifelong medical intervention. And the directive that bans trans from the military doesn't say if you identify as trans. It only says if you're currently undergoing medical intervention. That's important to note, and nobody.
Yeah,
so you
know that
walk in the military and be like, I'm trans, but I'm not doing anything about it medically, and you're fair, and you can still be in the military.
Oh God, I should make a video about that.
You should. Reach out to me because just look. The directive is like 4 pages long or something. It's very short, and it's explicitly stated in the directive.
Yeah. No. Yeah, and I mean, it's perfectly fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
It's like
Well,
yeah,
this
like
next one is
diabetics are not allowed, and that's fair.
Yeah.
Like they can die if they run out of insulin in battle.
Yeah, and trans people think they will literally die if they don't get their estrogen injections or testosterone, you know?
Well, they get all full of tranks.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, that's the entire basis of it. It's about medicine. It's about like you can't be on the battlefield and needing your injections.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if you have any history of seeing a shrink for depression, even mild, like maybe once you went through a hard time and you went to a shrink,
Uh-huh.
maybe your mom died and you went to a shrink because you were depressed, that disqualifies you from the military. I mean, trans people are in like so much therapy and require so much medical intervention.
Yeah. Okay, so what is this one?
the next one's very hysterical. Yeah, Trump and Pence have announced a proposal that would gut anti-discrimination protections for transgender patients in healthcare spaces, essentially permitting harm against trans patients for no apparent reason.
Yeah, this is a good one.
That doesn't make any sense.
She harps on this for several tweets. It's insane. It makes no sense, and she seems to think that doctors. If you're going to be a doctor, if you're a medical provider, a doctor or a nurse, you swear an oath that you have to care for everyone. So even if like the most loathsome people of our society were to come into a doctor's office or an ER, like say like a terrorist or a pedophile, doctors still have to give them care. So Charlotte, in several tweets after this, because she harps on this patience thing, is saying that there's this whole legion of hateful bigot doctors out there who now can deny services to trans people. Not true. What the Trump administration did was they essentially said that Obama put in a rule that said that basically doctors have to get on board with if I'm understanding this correctly, that the Obama administration got passed a rule that said doctors, the personal beliefs of doctors supersede their role as a doctor. So if a transgender comes in with maybe wanting to get reassignment surgery or something like that, and the doctor personally does not feel it's medically necessary or it goes against his religious beliefs, he can refer that patient to another doctor. That's not like a transgender person comes into an ER with a broken leg and a doctor being like, "Oh, I'm not going to help you."
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? But that's what they turned it into.
Yeah, that's dumb. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, next one. If that somehow weren't enough, Trump and Pence have proposed a regulation that would directly enable medical professionals to deny all forms of care to LGBTQ patients solely based on the provider's personal beliefs. No joke.
No joke. Yeah, I
joke.
laid that out in my last comment. So yeah, she goes on. That's exactly what it is. It's basically a conflict. It's the argument is between the Hippocratic Oath and faith, and 99.99999% of doctors, probably even greater than that, would have no faith-based personal adherences to performing their Hippocratic Oath. It's absolute fear-mongering.
Yeah. Okay.
On top of that, Trump and Pence have established a new office within HHS whose sole purpose would be to defend physicians and other medical professionals who refuse care to LGBTQ patients. This is all real. It's happening.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she has another tweet about HHS and actually about I think it's just after that about the Trump administration denying public housing to gays or something. It went to court, and the federal judge dismissed the case and laughed it off that there is no discrimination happening.
Okay.
Trump and Pence have granted a federally funded foster program to discriminate against families who are LGBTQ or whom do not identify as Christian. That includes Jews, Muslims, any other family not identifying as Christian.
Yeah, she's insane.
But that's not even what it is. It's just from a few services that want to conduct their services that way.
Yeah, it's and also it's oh God, look at how horrible these publications are. They're trying to make you pay.
I know, it's so stupid. And they're like $1, and I'm like, you.
Well, the whole foster care thing. Firstly, like these are religious institutions. They never acknowledge the rights of the birth mother. You know, a birth mother might choose a Christian or Catholic foster care agency to give her child to because she wants that child to end up in a specific type of home.
Good point.
And other mothers would choose a secular one because they wouldn't care if it ended up in a same-sex marriage home. So,
are there entire agencies devoted to like LGBTQ families?
Well,
Wouldn't that be funny?
There should be, actually, and I've said for a long time, because I want kids, I desperately want kids, and I've said for a long time that I'm pro-life, and I think that pro-life people should be on board with gay adoption 100%. It may, for some of them, certainly not the majority, but for some, it may rub them the wrong way. The idea of a same-sex household, but it's better than the alternative, which is a life in foster care. And if you believe it, if you're pro-life, then one great service that gays can perform in society is taking care of these unwanted children.
I've started to come around and think that I do maybe want like 2 kids at most. And the reason why is how much I enjoy teaching kids stuff. And the reason, like, I always enjoyed, like showing my nephew things that were cool and that type of a thing, like showing him comic books and explaining him the characters when he was really young. And then I realized, like, teaching, I have this one kid that I talk about a fair amount. If he knew that I talked about him on my streams, I don't know what he would think, but he's like 12 now, and I've been playing Overwatch with him since he was 11. And it was this weird, like, he's the only kid that's that young that I play with, and it was this kind of like random thing. We felt bad for not accepting him into our group because he did really good, and then we were like, "Oh, you don't have a mic," and then right at the end, he said, "I have a mic," and everyone was like, "Oh," and so I was the one who was like, "Okay, I'll send him a friend request," and then it turned out that he really likes playing with us because we're older and we work well as a team, and he's not bratty at all. Like, he's like the sweetest little kid, he almost never talks. And so it ended up being this thing where he would always want to play with me and like hit me up being like, "Can I play with you? Can I join your group?" And so I always would. And then he was really, really good about listening to me and like what we need to in order for our team to win. And he's young and he's very talented, so he can learn characters really quickly. And so he ended up being kind of like the adaptable person, but it works best when I'm telling him who we really should have, because when you're that young and there's like 29 characters in the game, you need to know who's good at defeating other characters on the team. And so I realized through that kind of relationship that it's really fun teaching kids crap, when they want to learn. It's just, there's something really rewarding about it. Yeah.
No, I agree. I got a niece, and she's oh my God, I think she's almost 10 now, and she's like the light of my life. Like, this child is so amazing, and just being able to like teach and entertain and just watch her grow is I mean, like, if we're not on Earth for any other reason other than that, what are we here for?
Yeah. What would be the reason more important than that?
What's more important than that? Exactly.
Yeah.
They also like all the most awesome things because everything's new to them, right? Like when's the last time you had a conversation with an adult about how cool dinosaurs are? Sometimes you need a little kid to remind you, like, dude, yeah, dinosaurs do rule. Like, that's a good point.
I have dinosaur tattoos on my left shoulder.
There you go. So you have I was teaching kids like the letter like X, how to make the X sound, right? And like one of the pictures we had was for a tuxedo, a tux. So then I was like kind of teasing them, like asking the girls, like, "Oh, do you want to wear a tux?" And they're all like, "No, no." And then I asked the boys, like, "Do you want to wear a tux?" And they're all like, "No, no, they look stupid." And then I'm like, "What about a dinosaur tux?" And the kids are like, "Yes."
Yeah, totally. my niece the other day, I was on the phone with her. She was like, I mean, she's known this for a while, but the kids like kind of like forget things and whatever. But she was like, Uncle Chad, are you gay? I was like, well, yeah, like you've known that forever. And she's like, why? And I was like, I don't know, it's just the way God made me. And she goes, well, that's weird. And I was like, yeah, you're right. It is weird. It is weird.
Grids Voltron asked in the chat what kind of dinosaur it is. We should all guess. I guess it's Triceratops.
There's 3.
Oh, there's 3. Is Triceratops one of them?
Nope.
Oh, well,
they're actually the most common is the pterodactyl. It's air, sea, and land.
Oh.
But the other ones are rares. Like they aren't talked about that much. So the sea is the plesiosaur. It's like it's the brontosaurus looking one that has flippers instead of legs.
That's like the one from Mario 64 when you go into the cave where the giant dinosaur water thing is.
It's also like the Loch Ness monster. And then an iguanodon, which is herbivore that it kind of looks like a T-Rex with a smaller head and longer arms. And then the thumbs are little spikes. So I think so it can stab people to defend itself.
Well, probably to like cut plants and things.
They're very stabby, not.
They're very stabby.
Yeah.
So this tweet you have up now, in the fall it was revealed that that Trump and Pence are literally attempting to circumvent a federal government-wide regulation that would essentially erase trans people from all existing protections and acknowledgement entirely.
Entirely.
Yeah. What that is,
capital E.
Yeah, it didn't go through, and what that is that it was basically a directive, very minor and pushing back against Obama's cultural Marxism that said that defined gender within federal documents. It defined gender as specific to chromosomes and genitalia at birth. So basically, facts, reality, and science. Shamefully, we have to actually define these things now. So Obama tried to erase that, and Trump was like, the Trump administration apparently was like, well, we just need to put a definition of what gender is in federal documents. And then that's what that's all about.
Tyranny.
Okay.
Absolute tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
Can't even odd right now. All right, this is about the CDC. We love them.
Oh, great, this is great. No, I got a good one on this. So, excuse me. Where was that? Yeah, going into dystopian space of parody, Trump and Pence orders the Centers for Disease Control to stop using the word transgender in official reports in an effort to erase data dissemination on trans people.
Except for the CDC came out and said that's not true.
Exactly. And what that related to was specifically not reports, but one report, which is the annual budget proposal from the CDC. President Obama had made, because he wanted to inject cultural Marxism into every branch of the federal government, Trump basically said, I don't want to see transgender was one of 7 words banned from budget proposals for the CDC.
Along with fetus and diversity.
Yeah, along with diversity and fetus and, 4 other words. So basically what Trump said is the CDC is a healthcare organization, a federal healthcare organization concerned with disease. I don't want to see in your budget proposals anything that relates to tolerance, diversity, and social justice. We want you focusing on healthcare. That's what that was about.
It's so funny that he has to just tard wrangle the CDC like that.
Oh, I know, right?
0% surprised. The CDC is garbage.
And who even said the CDC wanted that? Obama was probably the one who encouraged what they want. He wants to see things about diversity and tolerance in their budget proposal when they should be studying Ebola.
Yeah, I'm sure that enough people in the CDC were on board with it, though. They're pretty progressive.
Mm.
Yeah, they were willing to say that, whatever that disease that was supposedly infecting babies in South America, that it was like basically an argument for abortion to be spread to everywhere. And
that was the Zika virus, right?
yeah, the Zika virus, and then it turned out that it just had to do with some other thing that was not what they were saying. And but the CDC had said it was the Zika virus, and so and then people gave me crap. They were like, the CDC wouldn't lie. The CDC, if they lie, people start dying, and it's like, well,
yeah,
like, okay, well,
oh, I forgot that nobody dies.
yeah, it's like, well, yeah, it's like, well, that was one of those things that I ended up being right, and then you never heard about it a single other time.
Yeah, it's a rough path.
So,
this next one, Trump and Pence have proposed a rule that would eliminate data collection on LGBTQ foster youth and parents, erasing all official knowledge of the needs of LGBTQ children in these spaces.
Yeah.
Chadwick.
Sorry, I step away for a second. Yes,
NBC News.
So that is so interesting. Hold on, I'm just gonna plug in my headphones right now. Give me 1 second.
Yes, I will continue without supporting this time. NBC News. What's with this stupid banner? It's so gay. I hate this. I want to go away.
Yeah. So what that has to do with is basically the Obama administration was asking foster children about their sex lives.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, and the Trump administration was like, "This is creepy and weird. We're getting rid of it." And she,
might as well tattoo a pink star or a pink triangle on there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And this she does another tweet later on about this about the elderly, like old people who are in the elderly and disabled who are in federal care, that the Trump administration got rid of questionnaires asking them about their sex lives. So first of all, with this also, and I pointed out in my response to her, 1/3 of the states said that they want to get rid of the LGBTQ question for foster kids, namely because some of these kids could have been sexually abused. Some of these kids could have been victims, and it would be like very upsetting and traumatizing to ask them about their sex lives. That makes absolute perfect sense. Why would you be asking foster children about their sex lives? Mm-hmm. And the same with the elderly and the disabled. So the the Obama administration rather wanted to ask the elderly and the disabled about their sex lives. Well, couldn't that be potentially really damaging to old people who have dementia, who might not understand the question? Couldn't that be really damaging to mentally disabled people?
It's just horrible. And it's also like, why do you want to know that?
Why do you want to know? Exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of, I think that was one of my arguments about the, well, for me, this had to do with race realism. What creeps me out about it the most is like, okay, that's a weird ethical dilemma, because when people start trying to figure out IQ differences between genetic phenotype groupings, you have to kind of like wonder why they're doing that and what they're going to do with the information. Like, that's like sort of the first thing that is alarming about that. And I don't see any like great outcome of it. Like, it's either like trying to be mean to the people that aren't necessarily such high IQs, if there does end up being a group that is like that, or people that are going to privilege them because reasons like, oh, let's give them more funding for education because they need it more. And it's like, I don't agree with either thing exactly. You know what I mean? So that's what it has been.
Well, I think that is the most uncomfortable and dangerous topic in politics.
Yeah.
It really is. But it also, the people who do talk about race and IQ fully acknowledge the fact that like whites aren't at the top; it's Asians. Mm-hmm. But in the same vein, it's also they sort of say that there's it's more of a roadmap and not obviously like a rule to live by. Like obviously President Obama is incredibly smart, and he's a black guy, probably smarter than most white people. So like it's not, but the left, the way the left's behavior suggests that they buy into it entirely because they don't think that minorities, aside from Asians, who they hate as much as white people, are not capable of surviving in competitive capitalistic economies on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. So the version of that as it applies to homosexuality is like when people are asking like everybody who's homosexual, and then are you born this way? Are you not born this way? And it's just like, why is that so important? You know what I mean? Like, well, like, why do you need to know that?
I'm with you. Like, why? Yeah, because and like I think the last time I was on with you guys was with Logan McCree, who I now totally adore, and I think that he's just like an absolute treasure, and has a really good head on his shoulders.
Yeah,
and he really challenges that born this way narrative, and that's and we should challenge it. But at the end of the day, we should challenge it if you're seeking truth and you want truth. But like you, at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, but also who cares? Let's just live respectfully and live our own lives, and as long as you're not hurting anyone else. But it is important to sort of examine those questions of why maybe homosexuality exists.
I am going to be heartbroken if I don't make it to the ICMI, because now that you're saying you're going, he's going. I have never actually met Spacepan. Visions of Color audio zines is saying he's going. Like, how weird would it be if I wasn't there?
You have to be there.
Elizabeth Hobson will be there. Brian.
Oh my god! Yeah,
I'm sure Hannah Wall will be
there'd be like the Prince posse with no Prince.
Charge it and pay it off later. You got to come.
Yeah, I can figure.
We gotta do cheap housing. So
we'll do it. We can do a fundraiser. I'm
not rich,
No, I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to help me promote the fundraiser.
No, well, I can help, but we can sleep on sofas in an Airbnb, and we'll be great.
Well, I already paid for a hotel room. I already have a hotel room that's like.
Oh.
They're like big suites that you would get like with
fancy pants from Hong Kong. Well, if you want to, if you got room in your hotel room and you want us, and they can bring up some cots and we can all crash together, we'll give you some money.
Yeah, there we go.
Done.
We can braid each other's hair.
We can play girl talk. We can call boys we like and hang up.
We can play Skeletons in the Closet, the game where you tell your deepest, darkest secret, like the second episode of 90210, and they had the slumber party, which is the best episode of television from all of the 90s. Do you remember that episode?
No,
it's so good. It's so funny. So the plot of it is that Brenda has over like a bunch of girls that because this is like right when she moved to Beverly Hills, and most of them are people she ends up being friends with, like Andrea, Kelly, Donna. And then there's this girl that's friends with, I think, Kelly, who comes, and Kelly is totally no, not Kelly, but this other girl is like just totally rude. She's the one that starts the Skeletons in the Closet game, and she does things like ask Kelly about the first time she lost her virginity, and she was like, well, it was with Steve, because blah blah blah, I used to date Steve. And then she's like, are you sure, Kelly? Because I thought it was with that one football player that you briefly had a crush on. And then she's like, oh, and she's like, well, it's called Skeletons in the Closet. Why don't you tell us about that? And it basically was a date rape. Like, they go out into the woods, and he's drunk, and all he wants to do is have sex. And so she puts out and then never talks to her again. And they did it. There was like no blankets or anything on the like floor, like the ground of the woods. And they play this like really depressing music. And eventually at the end, they start calling her B words. They're like gut, and then they at the end they are somebody's like handing her purse as she's going out the door because she's going to some frat party or something. Like she didn't want to be there anyway, and a bunch of diet pills fall off and fall out and fall over and they're like, oh, you're a meth addict. That's why it's so good. It's the best thing ever.
You are better homosexual than me because you had that reference at the tip of your fingers.
Yeah. No, but that's what I always think of. Like, that's my go-to when I think of slumber parties. I think of that episode. They try to do like a Ouija board for a little bit, and it's
Okay, so this tweet, Trump and Pence has specifically ordered questions on sexual orientation to be removed from surveys of programs that cater to the elderly and disabled. That's what I just was talking about. Directly striking older LGBTQ Americans and people and persons with disabilities. Yeah, so exactly what I had just said. So this is about social justice, Obama Marxism, the tyranny of, well, just tyranny, doing a sort of blanket sweep on individual concerns. Like these sort of directives don't consider the concerns of the individual. There might have a mentally disabled person or an older American with Alzheimer's, perhaps, and you're asking them about their sex lives. Like, how damaging and confusing and weird would that be?
Yeah. So let's move on.
The next one. Trump and Pence. Oh, sorry. Whenever I click to enlarge it, I have to scroll back down. That's why it's jumping.
Yeah.
Okay. Trump and Pence have ordered HUD and Ben Carson to remove the words inclusive and free from discrimination in HUD's official mission statement while scaling back enforcement of non-discrimination regulations. Again, this is happening.
Yeah.
I just love her editorializing. It's my favorite.
So good. It's so good. Inclusive is communist dog whistling. We all know that. So great. They got rid of the word inclusive. And this is what I said earlier. I mentioned this earlier. So someone had tried to challenge that under Trump and Ben Carson, the blackest white supremacists in America, that there were just that under him they were discriminating against people in federal housing. It went to federal court, and a federal judge laughed it off and dismissed the case and said it was absolute nonsense. So that's all you need for that.
It is kind of a ridiculous setup, though, where like what they can do is like stick all this diversity crap and all of this language where it doesn't belong, and then the moment you're kind of going through like, okay, like I'm gonna like take down this rainbow banners, clean up some of this glitter, like this is ridiculous, then they get to turn around and be like, oh my god. Like,
it's so
why
true.
would you remove that? Why would you remove that?
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah. Like, why is it in their mission statement? That's so dumb.
Because when they inject words like inclusive into the federal housing program, it's insinuating that there's something that is discriminatory about it, that like, you know, we live in their basic narrative, the new Marxist narrative, the new left narrative, that we live in an inherently racist white supremacist society, and therefore we have to inject this language into
if it's not there, we're gonna have zoned neighborhoods.
Right, exactly.
I'm just imagining like a government employee like going through your Section 8 housing, right? And just like being like, are you sure you're gay? Like this carpet, like the way you have it set up here, like I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
I live across the street from Section 8 housing, and I don't think there's a diversity problem there in the way they define it.
Okay, well, let's move on.
Trump and Pence have also ordered HUD and Ben Carson to permit emergency shelters to deny access to transgender persons who are homeless. There is no need for this, but they've specifically made the order.
Yeah, this is fantastic because what they said was, okay, look at homeless populations. Homeless women are
they don't exist.
Not a thing.
It's not a thing, number one, but but when they do exist, I mean, there's so much rape and sexual assault that happens in homeless shelters, obviously. So sex-segregated homeless shelters is a good thing and a necessary thing. What they're saying is the Obama administration wanted men who call themselves women, whether they're transgender or not, to be allowed into female homeless shelters. And a lot of the women who are homeless are there because of perhaps domestic abuse, perhaps they've been assaulted by their male partners. Why would you allow people with dicks into these shelters? Like, it's asking for trouble.
Yeah, it seems not very reasonable.
They would allow.
I love how she's she's naming Ben Carson each time too. I think that's very deliberate.
Yeah, this rich white liberal transgender person. You could look up pictures of Charlie Clymer, who was her former self.
Did you just dead name her?
I think I did. Trying to mock Ben Carson, trying to go through these things. It's all about, like, so many of these transgender initiatives are about protecting women.
And then the next one is, this is 2 years after Trump and Pence ordered HUD to cancel a survey on LGBTQ homelessness. Is this really a concern for homeless people in general? Like, I just think, when you're homeless, it's kind of like we're at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and like, are we really going to be concerned about the gay impact of that?
Yeah, I mean, why do you care? If you're homeless, you're homeless. If you're
we can't even figure out the number of homeless. Like there's so many basic statistical realities about homelessness that are like really, really tricky to try to figure out. And I feel like adding the gay element, there's no way this data is like reliable. And then whether or not it's useful is like a whole nother question.
Yes, you're exactly right. And another unfortunate, inconvenient truth of the left is that if of the majority of homeless LGBTQ people are Black, and that's because the Black community isn't super on board with gays and they get kicked out of their homes. It's not like white evangelical Christians so much as urban Blacks.
Yeah, and I can see how that's a thing where it's like you have these much more like posh gays like making it about like, oh, this is how I'm oppressed, and it's like the kind of person who like could conceivably benefit from getting this kind of information, their experience probably has like really nothing in common with yours.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Yeah, posh urban gays who are trying to stand up for a little guy and have no idea about the reality.
I'm a little disappointed there wasn't any dramatic add-on to this. Maybe the next one. Oh, this is good. The next one's good.
What is this?
Trump and Pence's Justice Department has literally, screw you, Twitter. I hate the way you're set up. Okay. Has literally filed a brief in the U.S. Court of Appeals that argued federal civil rights laws do not protect LGBTQ people from discrimination. I am not making this up.
This is my favorite of her tweets. So what is happening here? This is my favorite. She's not making this up. What she's doing. So the Justice Department under Trump has acknowledged in court fact, which is that federal civil rights laws do not apply to LGBTQ people. Title IX is the closest thing that comes to that, and that only relates to education. So what the Trump administration did in court was routine. They're just saying there's no law that says that LGBTQ people are protected from discrimination in the federal government. They're literally just stating fact. Like,
it's a hate fact.
If you want that law, then pass it. But it hasn't been passed. They're just saying we are interpreting the law as the law said, and the law says this. The executive branch, which is President Trump, the executive branch is charged with enforcing the laws. The legislative branch is charged with making the laws. So the executive branch is saying the legislative branch has not done this, and we are just enforcing the law as it's stated.
I guess her perspective, though, is that people on the other side of it are arguing, no, there is a way to interpret the law that it would include this, which is why she said it's argued.
Fine, they can interpret all they want, but it's not explicitly stated. That's how Roe v. Wade was decided. It was interpretation, not literal words. If it was in the federal law, you cannot discriminate against people, against men who like to suck dick, then that would be the law. But it's not explicitly stated.
And it's like if you're pushing for that kind of a law, you can't do that without acknowledging the factual reality that it's not a law yet. So
Right.
this isn't really that different.
That's exactly what the Justice Department was doing. They're just saying, like, hey, it's not in the law. If you guys want to make it a law, then make it a law and we'll enforce it, but it's not a law.
But they should just do it anyway.
But it's hateful to acknowledge facts.
Ooh, this is a great charitable picture of Sessions here.
That is really good, yeah.
Many of the policy proposals of the past 2 years have been built on this announcement from the Trump and Pence Justice Department, specifically permitting individuals to discriminate against LGBTQ people based on personal beliefs.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like nothing new.
No, this is the Christian Baker argument, which we won, and it went to SCOTUS, and we won, rightfully so. And that protects Muslim bakers as well, so they shouldn't be upset about it.
Yeah, I wish I protected all bakers, but I guess I'll take what I get. Like I want to have my baking shop where I say no commies allowed. Like why do I have to pretend that's a religion and then I get to have basic rights?
No, you should have those rights. And if you ran that bakery with no commies and they tried to go against you, I think you would probably win on constitutional grounds. We need that case.
Oh, it's kind of like also atheists, we all hate it when people say atheism is a religion. Maybe we should just say it is. Maybe we should just say, yeah, okay, atheism is a religion now. Fine.
It is a religion. It's a celebration of the animal self and not the spiritual self. That's a religion.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
Oh, no. Because, if we take weak atheists, right? That's just like a denial of a claim. I have a phrase, I say babies and tables are atheists. But it's more of a semantic debate.
What's this? And Trump
and Pence's Justice Department, in the midst of all of this, still found time to specifically announce that the law does not bar discrimination against transgender people.
Yeah. Again, they're stating fact. It's that they're just stating fact. The executive branch is charged with enforcing laws. The legislative branch makes the laws. So they're just interpreting what the legislative branch has done.
And I know at the beginning of this thread, she said that, she implied she's kind of saving the best for last. Because I'm sitting here there's a lot of nothing burgers.
No, that's what 42,000 likes for nothing burgers.
God.
What is this? Trump and Pence have intentionally inserted themselves into defending businesses who, yeah, of course, yeah, religious freedom. Yep. Very few people are on the side of the deranged gay activists who fired a bazooka at these people. And by the way, it should be noted, and everyone forgets this and nobody wants to mention it, is that in each and every one of these situations, and I wrote a cover story for The Advocate about this, about the gay bakers, and I interviewed the gay bakers, all three of them who were at the epicenter of it in 2014, I believe it was. Each and every one of these business owners did not deny service based on sexuality.
Yeah.
Every single one of these people who came after them were longtime customers who they happily served for a long time. It came down to the ceremony of a gay marriage. And each and every one of them said, I love you. You're my longtime customer. This is actually, oh God, what's her name? I wish I could remember. She was a florist in out west who I interviewed personally. And she said, when they came in, they were a longtime customer. And I took their hand and I said, I love you and I appreciate your business, but I simply cannot participate in this specific event, this ceremony. And then she gave them a list of, 10 other florists who could help them. So it had to do with the ceremony, not discriminating against LGBTQ people. It was that my Christian faith says that marriage is between a man and a woman, which it is, and I cannot, it goes against my faith to be a part of this ceremony. I'm so sorry. Please come back for your, birthday party. I'll happily give you flowers.
Well, and I think even with a lot of these, with the gay wedding cakes, like they could buy a cake and use it for their wedding. It's just like any. I guess I never really thought of it much. If you're someone who provides for weddings, I guess often that does kind of require you to like show up on the venue and kind of be part of it in a way.
Yeah, and they, like there's people who can be like, okay, well, you're a bad business owner because you're denying money. Fine, fair. And there's people who can say any number of things about these business owners. But at the end of the day, this is what they believe. So you can't. Why would you be so hateful as to try to force someone to do something against their beliefs?
And to make that like this like a central component of your wedding is going to be like the fact that you strong arm someone into
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Oh, you're so right. Yeah. I mean, we can imagine. We know exactly who these people are, right? Like we've met these people who, like, we know who they are, and they would love to have a wedding that is defined by the fact that they took a bazooka onto Granny with her bucket of dyed carnations and made her do their wedding. Instead of it being about love and spirituality in Christ or whatever else and about eternal commitment, these are the same people who after they get married are having threesomes and foursomes, and on Grindr the only difference is they can now say they're doing it with their husband and not their boyfriend.
Yeah, they're the ones showing up to the gay bars, making out with guys who aren't their husbands with the wedding ring on. Everybody knows he has a husband. Everybody probably knows the husband.
Exactly.
Why are you kink shaming? Why are you kink shaming?
I'm not kink shaming.
I'm gay marriage shaming.
I agree with you on gay marriage shaming because it's the hypocrisy. I support gays being as disgusting, like myself, I am one of them, as disgusting and debaucherous as possible, as much as they feel free to be. But don't do it under the name of marriage, because
just call it civil unions. Get the necessary rights.
That gets down to the whole Mike Pence thing.
And the funny thing is, I've actually that debate is so old that contemporary gay guys who have a memory of approximately 6 months long, they I bring up, I'm like, honestly, there's good arguments for just taking the word marriage out of it and making civil unions that give all of the necessary benefits, like next of kin and potentially tax breaks. So I'm not even sure about that, because I've heard that, gay people don't even get, or married people don't even always get tax breaks, but mainly the next of kin, and maybe like green card, and not have it called marriage, and then give everybody civil unions, and then allow people to have their own religious ceremonies that are tailored to their own, what the version of marriage that their culture or religion asks for. And I've told that to people, and they're like, wait, that's a really good idea. Why doesn't anybody ever talk about that? And like, who first talked about that? I was no fan, but George W. Bush.
Wow. Yeah. He
advocated for that in 2004. You can look it up.
Yep, you're right. Yeah, the Christian Baker thing is so important because it gets to the fundamentals of First Amendment, which is everything.
I'm imagining like a Klansman who really loves soul food and has like a soul food restaurant they frequent all the time, and then they're like, "What do you mean I can't have you guys cater my wedding or cater my event?" It's all like
exact same
windmills of peace themed and everything.
Oh yeah,
I really wanted to have all of these black people that run the soul food restaurant to show up and be forced to cater the food for all these people, and I don't understand why that's asking so much.
There's every day in front of their business, there's 2 to 3 gay church ladies going, "No compromises in civil rights. No compromises for civil rights."
Exactly. It's just like they are so ridiculous and sloppy and disgusting and intellectually incongruent that it's imagine the Jewish baker and the Nazis come in and say, "We want to kill all the Jews' cake." You know what I mean?
Yeah. They have no
extreme, because Christians all these Christian service providers and all Christians in America obviously don't want to kill any gays. They don't care. They just are looking at scripture and they believe certain things. And I agree with them on most everything.
Huh. Okay, let's keep going because I want to get to the portion where we talk about the people lying about Proud Boys, and then probably end the stream because it's been going on for a while. This is gonna be like a 4-hour stream.
Hey, that's fine with me. I opened a beer a couple of minutes ago. I'm having a good time. This is a much better use of my Saturday night than what I would probably be doing.
I kind of want to go get a beer. Maybe I'll get one after this is over, and we can hang out and chat together.
You should.
Okay.
So I also invited a fuck buddy over who is maybe I should be saying this. Maybe my beer's going to my head. Who is in his 20s and a legal immigrant from El Salvador.
Oh, you've told me about that guy before.
About this guy, yeah. No, he's really funny because he's like, he doesn't really care about politics, but to hear him talk about illegal immigrants and the illegal Mexicans he works in a restaurant and talk about like the illegal Mexicans in his restaurant and how homophobic they are and how much he hates them and how lazy they are and how they suck up services. I'm like, oh my God, you're a little right winger, aren't you? Okay, 3 round now. Rejecting the evolving policy under Obama and Bush that sought to provide safe accommodations for transgender inmates. Same thing as the homeless shelter. Trump and Pence are aggressively rolling back all protections for trans in our prison system. Yeah, prisons. Yeah, it's the same thing as the homeless shelter. So you're talking about prisons. Like the most violent and awful people in our society are locked away in one room. And you have women's prisons and men's prisons. And suddenly you want to allow biological males into women's prisons.
Yeah.
What?
And also MMA.
Just with a sweep. That's what this all comes down to. Is it's with a sweep. It's not necessarily taking into account individual cases. So, like maybe you'd have someone like suppose like Blair White, for example, went to federal prison for some reason, who obviously looks like a woman, is fully invested in the transition,
and is only like 5'3" or something.
Yeah, and exactly. Like by all counts, like is passable, is totally passable. So, the most just society would take a case by case approach and look at someone like Blair, who's attracted to men, and be like, yeah, Blair belongs in a female prison because Blair is going to get raped and all things would happen if they were in a man prison. It's a case-by-case approach. And what Obama did was do a sweeping policy, and what the left wants is just sweeping all. It doesn't matter, all cases, the same rules apply. We have to integrate the sexes.
I don't know. I guess this is kind of a hot take, but I kind of have the same perspective on this as I do with like transgenders in sports, which is like if you're a female and you get convicted of a crime and you're in prison, like not only are you basically definitely 1,000% guilty, but like you ended up in prison like despite like having all of this like momentum and advantage in your favor. So I kind of just feel like, you know what, like the men get sent to man jail, maybe the women just get sent to man jail also. Just make it one big jail. It's prison. You know, we accept that it's hell for all the men. Like just let it be hell for everyone.
Well, no,
it's a little bit draconian, but I'm just kind of like.
No, I don't agree with that because you're denying the differences in the sexes, and you're denying like what's going to happen to. Arguing for sex-segregated prisons is an argument in favor of women. It's a real feminist argument, you know.
What if you made the argument based on like upper body strength? Like you had like a neutral standard that
women would never win because they don't have any.
Well, exactly, right. So in practice, it would end up looking very gender segregated, but then like it would also kind of solve the trans question, right? Because like Blair White could technically be considered a male, right, and then put into the man prison. Whereas if you had a standard that was more based on like height and like physical strength and things like that, like more of the secondary characteristics, it might end up making more sense.
But you're still advocating for imposing sort of universal standards to things that need a case-by-case evaluation.
Well, but we're doing that anyway, right? Because if
Okay,
we
guys,
biological sex,
this is actually a debate, and I don't really care all that much. Like, I feel like there's people can think about this for this. I want to move on, is what I'm saying.
Okay, well, if Prince doesn't care about debate, then let's move on.
No, it's more like I wanna move on because of other reasons.
I'm
And
just worried about Martin Shkreli. That's all.
Oh, bless
That's what it's
oh
really
my God, Martin. No, bless him. He got moved to, he's, about a mile away from me right now in the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center. It's so sad.
he was so amazing. Did you see the clip where he went on to talk about like animal testing for some reason, or maybe it was about Martin, but not Martin, the Harambe incident, and he was like, "Oh, I have a lot of compassion for Harambe. In my business, we work with a lot of animals in pharmaceutical testing. So I've really learned to have a deep appreciation for their lives." It was so obviously a troll. It was so funny.
He's hilarious.
Yeah.
I know. I'm so upset that he's gone.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
I hit my tweet limit for a drafted thread, so I'm just gonna keep going from here. There's much more to come. Okay, that's just it.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know, Captain Chin.
Okay.
I
Blah,
didn't
blah,
know there was
blah.
a tweet limit.
Non-description protections for LGBT federal contractors. How is that not true? Or is it just not really like...
Okay, so this is good. So with the 9 weeks taking office, Trump and Pence roll back this is wonderful. So the Obama administration basically would not give federal contracts to private companies if they didn't jump on board with, basically, if they weren't like obnoxiously virtue signaling about LGBTQ. So the Trump administration was like, this is stupid. We're going to give contracts to any company that does the best job. We don't have to strong arm companies into virtue signaling about LGBTQ. We're just going to give contracts to the best company for the job.
How dare they? How absolutely dare they? How dare you, sir?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what that was about. What's the next one? Trump and Pence
have ordered the State Department to deny visas to same-sex partners.
Right. This is what I said at the start of this. So that's not true. It said that all partners who are coming into the country who are diplomats, partners of diplomats, have to be married. That includes gay marriage.
Okay.
So the only question that arises is, what about countries that criminalize homosexuality? And the answer to that is, those countries wouldn't have gay diplomats. So it's basically like it's a directive saying that, like, you can't bring your side piece or your trick into the country if you're a diplomat. The person you bring with you has to be your spouse, gay or straight.
Okay, moving on. Just 2 weeks ago, Trump and Pence changed the rules specifically so the child of a same-sex couple born abroad via surrogate would be considered born out of wedlock and would not be granted U.S. citizenship.
Mm-hmm. This is another absolute bullshit. So it does not affect gay adoption. It has nothing to do with gay adoption. This was a rule that was implemented in 1952 that said that surrogate children have to be biologically related to at least one of the parents if they're born outside of the country and want to have citizenship. That was rule in 1952. Obama got rid of that rule, and Trump reinstated that rule. And it has more to do with illegal immigration and chain migration than it does, like, it has nothing to do with LGBT. Like, the LGBT just found like a narrative in that. It has nothing to do with that. So they just so Trump just basically said, like, no, we're reinstating the rule as it's been since 1952. And so it means if you're a surrogate parent, if you're a gay surrogate couple, you have to be biologically related to the woman who gives birth to your child in a foreign country. That's all, in order for that person to get citizenship. Also, though, what this article misses and what she misses and intentionally clouds is that these children, even if you are not biologically related, you can still get U.S. citizenship. It's just a different process. So instead of going to line A at the immigration office, you go to line B.
Okay.
So she's actually lying for multiple reasons here. She said to change the rules specifically for this reason, when in fact it's incidental, but then also would not be granted U.S. citizenship. She means automatically granted through this thing, not that it's a full-on denial.
Exactly. She's flat out lying.
Okay. Next one. Trump and Pence over LGBTQ and other issues. I think probably mostly other issues. Remove the United States from the UN Human Rights Council.
This is my second favorite. I love this so much. So the United States under Ambassador Nikki Haley withdrew from the UN Human Rights Council I believe in July 2018, specifically because the Human Rights Council of the UN includes Saudi Arabia, includes Somalia, Iran. It includes the world's worst human rights abusers. So Nikki Haley, under President Trump, withdrew the United States from the council, specifically saying in a statement is that it's hypocritical, it's pointless, it's full of the world's worst human rights abusers, and we're not going to we're not going to entertain this clown show.
Okay.
Because it means nothing. So that's why they're true. But she gets back to this later on, which is great. But go on.
Okay. Trump and Pence then used this as an excuse to not sign a statement condemning attacks on LGBT people in Chechnya, where atrocities against queer people are horrific and ongoing.
Well, this is the best. So, Charlotte, they didn't sign the statement because they're no longer a part of the council. They withdrew themselves, so they're no longer at meetings, and they're no longer signing.
That's just an excuse. That's just an excuse.
Yeah, but the best thing about Chechnya, I love when they're forced to bring up Chechnya, because Chechnya is a white region vaguely under control of Russia.
Yeah, which they don't mention that it's Islamic.
It's Muslim. So Chechnya is wonderful because
and they also don't mention that a bunch of Russian activists rescued all the people.
Yes, you're 100% correct. And that President Putin of Russia actually welcomed gay Chechen refugees into Russia.
Yeah.
They don't mention that. But so Chechnya is great because it's an Islamic nation that is, or Islamic, I don't know if it's a nation, what is it? But it's an Islamic territory that is white. So, which proves that when people conflate Islamophobia with racism, it's actually not racism. It's about an ideology.
Yeah. Okay.
Bizarrely, Trump and Pence ordered the USDA to remove a department policy specifically welcoming LGBTQ children in the 4-H program, which led to the firing of an official who protested.
Yeah. Why do you? I don't actually remember this one. Why do you?
Kind of convoluted.
I didn't read. It seems really convoluted. And why are you sexualizing children? That's all I want to ask. Why are you sexualizing children? You want to ask kids about their sexual preferences?
The only thing I just think about the 4-H thing is like Marianne and Wanda were the best of friends all through their high school days. Both members of the 4-H club, both active in the FFA. That's all I have to say. It's not really.
I don't even know what this is. I didn't read the article. I think it probably just go. So no. So the tweet. If you go back to the tweet. So bizarrely, Trump and Pence ordered the USDA. Okay. To remove a department policy specifically welcoming LGBTQ children into the 4-H. Why would you specifically welcome LGBTQ children who don't know their sexuality into a 4-H program? Like, why do you need to specifically welcome them? Why can't we all?
It's so they become
people.
It's so they become people who can force other people to lick their boots.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. So if all of that weren't horrific enough, Trump and Pence, with the assistance of McConnell, have worked overtime to pack the federal courts with judicial nominees who are brazenly anti-LGBT. Shut up, not true. Like, I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
So what else is there?
Last year, Trump and Pence's second SCOTUS nominee, Kavanaugh, refused to answer straightforward questions during his confirmation process about LGBTQ case law, including the ruling legalizing same-sex marriage.
Yeah, except for the thing is that all the worst case scenario is that he would come forth and basically agree with us about what we think about gay marriage, which is that it should, it should be civil unions, and they don't need the word marriage. But he didn't want to say so because
that's the
bad optics.
And it's a sad state that gay marriage is the law of the land. It will be law of land. It's never going to change, even with once Ruth dies, even with a 7-3 or 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court, it's still going to remain the law of land.
Correction. You mean once Ruth Bader Ginsburg is confirmed dead?
Once we see, yeah, exactly. After 2020, when we see the body. But it's the law of the land. It's another way that the right continually loses in culture. I guess it's fine, but it's also, I'm much more in the band of, there should be. Why aren't there? If you want to do this, the most fair solution would be 2 types of marriage: civil marriage and religious marriage, and they have nothing to do with one another. So if you want to get civilly married, you do that. If you want to get religiously married, you do that. That solves all the problems.
Yeah, let's have the government care about marriage as much as it does about baptisms.
Right. Well, yeah, and I mean, the government should have no business whatsoever in marriage, but the government injected itself in marriage because they saw benefit in encouraging unions and reproduction. So, I mean, I don't want the government to encourage anything, but that's not like the worst thing that they could encourage. But now that's just the reality of it.
Okay, under Trump and Pence, ICE has specifically mistreated LGBTQ migrants and asylum seekers, including Roxana Hernandez, a trans woman of color who died in their custody and whose death has not been given clarity.
Oh, so this is so what we're reading right now is a whole new thread from Charlotte, because a lot of these tweets weren't in her original thread, which I responded to.
Oh my God.
But
let's see how far it goes. It looks like we're near the end of it.
We've been going on this for so long. We've been doing this for like over an hour, I feel like.
But Charlotte is so awful and so wrong.
I know. So under Trump, ICE mistreated. That person, I believe, was a drug addict who, I'll have to look it up. Yeah, no, don't do CNN, obviously.
Okay, there's only a few more. Let's power through. I don't really want okay, so there was some reason. That's what we know. But you have to look it up. So
this article argues that she didn't suffer abuse in ICE custody, according to an autopsy. So this probably didn't age well.
Okay.
Yeah, so every time some criminal dies at the border, it's somehow like because America is an oppressive white supremacist nation.
It's the Matthew Shepard effect on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, amid all of this, there's an epidemic of anti-trans violence, specifically against Black trans women, at least 6 of whom have been murdered this year.
Fake.
4 of them in the past 2 weeks. Trump and Pence have said nothing. Who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Who cares? And by the way, the majority of Black trans women who are murdered, which is the left's, porn for the left and porn for media.
Yeah.
The majority of them are murdered by lovers and spouses, which is the same, unfortunately, which is the same situation for real women. So it's also
tricks, right?
Yeah, well, that was my next point.
Or John's.
They aren't murdered because of transphobia. They're murdered by spouses, and also because transgender women are vastly more likely to be engaging in sex work and drug trafficking than normal women. So they're putting themselves in dangerous situations.
Yeah, and when I say I don't care, I don't mean that sucks and everything. Like it does. All murder is horrible. Blah 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 blah. But like because this is a complicated issue, we don't need the president mentioning every single time it happens. And so,
Yeah, why would you? It doesn't exactly. There are greater concerns of this country that.
yeah, and the fetishization of that issue is more of a problem to me.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I tweeted about this recently. I did probably one of the stories that I'm most proud of. This was back in like 2013, I think. I spent months living amongst transgender illegal immigrant prostitutes in Jackson Heights.
Oh, it's like your own little Paris is burning.
It was my own little Paris is burning, but I wrote a story that I was very young also at the time, but like was extremely heartfelt, and I had a lot of characters in it, and I wrote about their lives basically. And what happened was, as soon as the story went online, GLAAD sent their nuclear arsenal to our editorial board and to me, demanding it be removed because I was displaying, because I was documenting transgender people doing illegal activities. Some of them who were lovely and wonderful, and some who were absolute monsters. Just like the spectrum of normal people. And GLAAD could not have transgenders in the media that were not media friendly, that didn't fit their perfect stereotype of what they wanted training to be.
That's messed up to know about.
What?
That's messed up to know about, that they're like that.
No, it is. So the magazine, Out Magazine, under editor-in-chief Aaron Hicklin, they took the story off the web, so now it's only in print. And it's crazy. Uh-huh. And GLAAD like accused me of being a pedophile.
What?
Yes, because in one section, there's this transgender named Arena, who I loved. She was so sweet. I loved her. She was such a doll. Probably like 26 years old, I think she was at the time, and just like so innocent and illegal, and wanted more for her life. Wanted to like get married and have kids and live in. I think she said she wanted to live in Ohio. Like she just picked a place. And yet she was a prostitute, because people told her, like, come to Queens. That's where you make money. Like from Mexico, people told her, come to Queens. That's where you make money, and you get all the services. That was another big thing. They all knew, come to Queens, you get all the services. So you get the HIV drugs, you get the free housing, you get this, you get this. Mm-hmm. And so she was sort of like, she was new and like lost in this world. And I was interviewing her when she was in her bedroom, which had Disney. Her sheets were a Disney princess pattern. And what is going on over there?
I just had my phone.
Okay, all right, okay. I'm being poignant, but so her sheets were like a Disney princess pattern, and I interviewed her while she was waiting on a John to come pick her up and fuck her, and I just sort of described what she looked like. And I said something like, she looks like something effective, she looked like a teenage girl, waiting for a ride to the mall. And GLAAD came back and was like, this is pedophilic. Like your writer is creepy.
What the? Oh, yeah. That's so infuriating.
Yes. Anyway, sorry. That was a rant.
Okay. So that's basically the end of it.
That's all of her stuff. Yeah, she's done, huh?
So I feel like now that we've discussed this for a very long time, I feel like I just want to quickly talk just a tiny bit about all of the lying, like this notion that, like, you don't see this all that much in stories. Like there's occasionally these big stories that try to claim that the Proud Boys started a fight, but they're always debunked. Like it's like the one in New York City that you debunked on my stream, and there was actually footage of them throwing the piss bottle, and it happened after the dude was beat up by them, but if you are in the far leftist circle, the rumors that the Proud Boys start beating people up for no reason, they're totally there. They're totally common. People have no idea that it's not true, and they will freak out and block you if you mention it. Like I like to do things like link Yosef's channel, because people are like, no, they're hateful white supremacists, blah, blah, like, no, or they're Nazis or whatever, and they beat people up for no reason. And it's like, okay, well, Yosef has a video about that where it's, what the Proud Boys are in under a minute, and he's like, they're an anti-racist fraternal organization that believes the West is the best. We do not start fights, but we certainly finish them. And that's from everything I know, from every piece of evidence I've seen, that is true. But these people don't want to hear that. And I think the reason they don't want to hear that is it's twofold. The people who want to attack the Proud Boys, the people who, signed up for the punch a Nazi, everyone that we don't like is a Nazi mentality, they just want to be able to punch people all the time. So they start making up lies. They start saying, oh, well, it's not at all unjust. They do attack us, and they know they're lying. But then the other people just believe it because they're scared. But it's just so unfortunate to me that, like, these people don't care about evidence. Like, they don't care, first of all, that you can find endless information or video evidence of Antifa starting fights and starting, throwing smoke bombs and crap, just unprovoked, that ends up leading to fights. They don't care. They won't, like, they will never search for them. And occasionally you can get them to watch them. But they don't really care. And they get annoyed when you start saying, hey, if the Proud Boys ever starts fights, which you say that they do it all the time, or like supposedly some leader called for open season on queer people in Portland, why can't you show us like some evidence of this sometime ever? Like, because we know that the Antifas will film and dox people and like try to smear people. Like, we know that. Why don't they ever pull out their phones when it happens? Because other people certainly do it to Antifa. Why does it never happen the other way around if this actually is a thing? And I really think that the reason that I don't know if I have a particularly poignant reason why I think that they do that. It's just so strange how little these care. Like, I think it's just like a guilty thing. Like, I feel like they know that they're guilty. They feel bad about it. And so they start the rumor. And
I think you've gotten to the core of who they are.
Yeah.
And that's why we see all the social media censorship and the banning is a core of who, like, they cannot win. They are based on fantasy, and they use fantasy to achieve political power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they have to ban any sort of thoughtful, charming, and influential alternative voice, because those voices win, because the American people and people in general are intelligent and capable and can weigh the two sides, and they can see that the other side is actually based on fact, reason, logic, and the things that you described.
Yeah.
And the left can't win that way. They can't win. So they have to ban, they have to censor. And
it's so easy to tell that the you can never actually find any evidence that the Proud Boys have an interest in starting fights. You can find ample evidence of them saying that they only defend themselves and people who are being innocently attacked, and that's why they started the Proud Boys.
Well, and even someone,
but they don't want people seeing that. They want to be able to just misrepresent them. Like, that's what they want. And whereas with Antifas, they want to allow them to keep lying, because then they can slander and libel the Proud Boys and increase this climate of fear where, these people do want violence. They do want to, be racist bashers of everyone and whatever. And so it's like, yeah, that's why they need to take away people's access to even speak.
Yes. And the Proud Boys are, I had very influential right-wing people say to me, you need to after that thing at the Met Club in October. I support the Proud Boys, but you need to officially disassociate yourself from that. And I said, no way in hell. I know these guys. I'm sure there's thousands of them across the world.
Uh,
I'm sure there's 2 or 3 bad eggs, and as soon as they're discovered, they're kicked out.
Yeah.
That routinely happens, and Gavin McInnes has said that, and chapter leadership. I'm like, I will never disavow these guys because the ones that I know are such lovely human beings, and they've been my friends. Like, they've supported me. They've been, when you're kicked out of polite society in a place like New York City, and you find a bunch of guys like this, they're lovely human beings. There's not an ounce of hate in their hearts.
Well, yeah, and like it's such a brave thing to do, to show up to instances where they're usually going to be kind of outnumbered, and they're brave enough to stand up to people who are going to attack innocent people regardless, and the police won't do their job. And so these guys are being that, when who is going to police, who's going to act as the police when the police aren't. And that's a really brave and noble thing to do. And so it's like, it's so hard for me to ever say that I would have a problem with them.
Yeah. Yes.
Like,
yeah.
I don't agree with I don't agree with several things about, like, the way that they think about relationships and a number of just things kind of like that.
They're no fap, aren't they? They're no fap.
What's that?
Yeah, they are. Well, they are, but everything about they're no fap meaning
yeah, yeah. But they also apparently
doesn't apply to gay. Specifically, the Proud Boys charter does not apply to gay members.
Okay, but according to Tim Pool, he says that they will never apologize about the West as a hardline stance, which is, and that he doesn't agree with that, and I wouldn't agree with that too. I just think that you should, admit when things have had problems or if they are having problems.
But every civilization has had problems. Like, it's the values of Western civilization is what they mean. Like the values of
okay. I'm not
freedom.
I know. I'm just saying I'm not going to say that I support them 100% because of things like that, because that's not my personal stance. But I am going to say it doesn't make me like have this huge problem with them.
Yeah, the Proud Boys' biggest problem is they're a bunch of working class straight guys by and large, of all races and all ethnicities and whatever, and but their biggest problem is because they're a bunch of working class straight guys, they have no concept of PR, and so they get into PR. Everything, whenever the media attacks them, they have no idea how to effectively defend themselves, and they have no idea that the things that they sometimes do, they don't understand how that's going to be warped by the media, like the New York incident. So like they need like a fag like me. Sorry. They need a homosexual like me to self-identifying F word. Which I use for the censors as a term of endearment. They need people who do understand these things and to help them. But they've been successfully crushed and smeared by the left and by the media because they're just not really as fun and as great as they tend to be. They are completely unprepared for actual media warfare.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that we have kind of covered this topic, and it's almost 9:00 where I am, meaning I want to end the stream. We can have a 22 together and talk for a little bit off air, if that sounds like a good idea still.
Yeah, of course. I love you guys. This is a much better way to spend a Saturday night.
Okay, well, it's always lovely having you, Chadwick. Thanks for showing up last minute. We actually got a fair amount of viewers. And anybody who just remember that I really want to go to ICMI now. So many of my friends are going to be there. I'm going to think about how to organize a fundraiser video. Hopefully, I can get my friends to give me a teeny little, no longer than 30 seconds plug of why they want me to meet me and for me to be there. And I imagine I can get the Honey Badgers to host it on their channel because they had already told me that they would potentially do a fundraising video for me. And so yeah, think about what you can donate to me right now. Think about if you could maybe donate to me for that. And I love you guys always. It was fun for me, and I will see you guys later. Parting words, guys.
Good night and thanks. And I believe Gavin McInnes always says on his podcast something to the effect of, speak up, get fired, cause trouble. I think that's a really good mantra to end on.
Okay.
Words to live by.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Spaceman?
Oh, I'll just quickly plug. I've been doing streams now where we read Women Respond to the Men's Movement from 1992. So kind of halfway through the week, I have those. And yeah, that's been fun times. So if anyone wants to show up on my channel.
And occasionally I show up. Last time I was there, I ended up starting to feel like my back was really hurting that day because I had just loosened it up like a major amount with the lacrosse ball. So I ended up having to lie down. But yeah, so you might see me there. But the other people who show up are cool and interesting. So yeah, you guys might like that.
Actually, within a couple of weeks, we'll have a bell hooks section. So that'll be good.
Yeah. Make sure we schedule that so it's easy for me to come. Okay. Bye.
Good night, folks.
Bye.